Good morning, afternoon, welcome. Parallel access stack. This is a humbucker stack, hum cancelling stack design. And it, well, yeah, it's a really interesting humbuckery thing in the neck position of JT's parts caster strap. Anyway, that's not what I'm here about right now. I'm here a day older, and thank you by the way for all those great birthday wishes, appreciate that. Rather humbling to get so many people wish you a happy birthday. Makes it okay to be as old as I am. Now look, what we've got here is Hugh's Epiphone Moderne. A curious looking creature with a Floyd Rose. Theoretically, some locking nuts at this end, but they're broken. One of them's broken, so we're going to get a replacement from somewhere. Yeah, and this thing is based on the holy grail of Gibson experimental futuristic guitars, which dates from, I don't know, 1957 or something like that. So, quite an amazing old thing. These green straps. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's called modern, but like I say, dates from the ancient days of the 50s. But this thing has had quite a tough life. Seen better days. It's got quite a lot of dings and stuff in it. It's got a control plate missing, etc., which we might find some replacement for, or maybe have to buy one. But anyway, so Hugh's picked this one up from somewhere and sent it because it's the kind of guitar I know Hugh would like. It's got character and it's a bit odd and unusual. Anyway, so he's sent it in for a refret. Oh, this is just tangled. I can't do this the other way. Yeah, in for a refret, and I'll have to do for a minute. In for a refret, and I think, well, it's nice balance. That sits all right. Thought that was going to be neck heavy, but the only thing that was wrong with this, apart from the dings and the broken heads, the broken thing, is that it's got, to Hugh's ears, it's got a very middly tone. So in a clean sort of setting, tone in mid position, no effects. I'm not going to tune it because it's not going to stay in tune because of the this middle one here not doing anything. So and these are all down at their stops, so there's no point. What I've done is I've taken a bit of audio only recording of this in the house, and I'm going to see if I can hear the difference. Middle. It's got the pop of the middle, which you'd expect. Neck. Playing it on the Black Star in the house, it just sounded a bit too middly for my liking. And the point is, whether I like it or not, whether I would notice that or not until I sort of tried playing it. I guess sometimes you find it playing with a band or something and you realise you're not able to cut through the mix and the sound just somehow doesn't feel right, and then you start to realise that it's the pickups that aren't working. Whether I like it or not, it's not really important. The important thing is that Hugh's not keen on the sound from these, and we don't really know what they are. They look on the surface like Epiphone pickups, but who knows. Anyway, the point about this guitar is I'm going to need to get straight into the business of it, because we need to find another awesome replacement of these things. I believe this one has, not sure if this is stripped altogether. Yeah, it looks like it. Ooh, yeah, the screw thing bolt has stripped. I hope it doesn't look like it's damaged the nut itself, so it might be worth seeing first of all if we've got any of these, or whether we can get any of these online simply enough. But let's just try this one in this hole and see if it works. Yeah, that's okay. It's just the thread on that's gone. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to refret this. So with that in mind, just really a case of taking the business off for now and getting it into refret worthy position. There's a few things to do, like for example, it's missing some plates on the back. I mean, certainly the electrics cavity is missing. It's also missing the back tremolo cavity plate, which I don't know whether or not that is that important, but might look nice with one on. The thing about these frets is they do seem incredibly low, and they're not nice to my fingers. And I know this sounds really silly, but I wondered whether that had a big part in Hugh's sense of not liking the pickups. Now, I don't mean, before you get all kind of freaked out, I think I'm implying that the height of the frets has much to do with the tone, which I'm not saying at all. What I'm saying is that I actually felt almost like I couldn't listen impartially to these pickups for two reasons. One is that Hugh's already told me he doesn't like them, and secondly, I couldn't separate them, the experience of listening to them, out from this uncomfortable flat fret experience that I don't feel comfortable with. So, you know, it's funny how, I suppose you could call it synesthesia, you know, that thing where one sense bleeds across into another. I think that's yeah, something like that. There's no hard and fast border between one sense and the other. So for me, the feel thing kind of plays into the hearing thing, or it could do. That's what I'm suggesting, and that I can't really evaluate very well the tone of the pickups without those other things factoring in. I don't know, I'm just guessing, you know. Sounded like a good word to use in art school anyway. Anyway, so what I've done, of course, is I've now let this fall back on this little padded thing because I forgot about propping it up. Well, what we'll do is we'll relieve it of its tension for now. Sounds like a line from a Rocky Horror film. Let us just relieve your tension. Let's sort of check every old thing as we go. Right, so I want to be getting a replacement for this, these screws, but if not, I'll have to get a replacement for this unit. They're actually, if you buy them from China, for example, they are dirt cheap, and really you can't go wrong with one of those pieces there. They don't actually do much other than, well, they need to provide the right height. That's all that matters, that they fit the right height above. That's not done up very much. Yeah, so you can get them fairly cheap. So I'm going to have a look and see if, first of all, I can buy the bolts, and if not, then have a look at the whole unit, because there's absolutely no point having a tremolo like that if it doesn't work. Okay, that's fine. No unexpected things there. It's I don't what the wood is, but it's nice. It's quite nice. A nice timber, whatever it is. It's dark, quite dark. It's yeah, it's got a layer of finish on it as well. It's what was I going to say? It's that's worn out. This bit of spongy stuff from years of digging wedges under it to change the strings. Classic signs of a well-used guitar. Yeah, it's a nice unit. Made in Korea, no less, no more, no less. I will take this off right now because I want to get full unfettered access to the fingerboard, so that when it comes to beveling and cleaning the frets up, I want to be able to run all the way up there without interruption. So okay, I can also, if I need to, I can also take measurements off this. Okay, well, let's have the cover off while we're at it. Come on, it's the way of all things. This also allows me to make any adjustments in the short term to the lie of the neck. That's interesting. 100% inspected and set up in the USA by Epiphone, although it's made in Korea, so presumably imported back into, or brought back in, shipped back into the United States for sale. Anyway, it's a nice thing. It's one of the ones that I've been seeing a lot of. It's a scarf joint, but it's a slightly, I don't know what the shape you'd call it. It's actually an unusual shape. It's got a little wobble on the end of it. It's not rounded, and it's not squared, or it goes up, and yeah, it's just a little kink in the shape of the joint. But there you go, just a peculiarity. Made in Korea. Yeah, it's like the neck that I've had on the BC Rich and on the Tanglewood 24 fret neck. It's got that similar nice flat radius, or relatively flat radius, and a nice slim profile. Just out of interest, see what it is. I can't tell you. See what my guessing eyes say. I would say that's 12 to 14 or something like that, but I could be wrong. Actually, feels a bit flatter than 12, so I was right about that. Again, this makes for kind of quite easy setup, or more easy setup, because easier setup, I think is a word, because it means that you can get a nice low action with without having to worry about the bends choking off, which you do get with a narrow, a tighter radius. So I think that is a 15. It's just a little off a 15-inch radius, which again, yeah, is well in the clear zone of easy playability. So what I'm going to do with this in a minute is I'm going to pull the frets on that and get me a set of jumbos lined up, ready to go. But in the meantime, I'm going to I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these strings off, which is a bit boring, so I'm not going to force you to watch me crimping strings to try and preserve them for reuse somewhere. I'll take those off camera. This, I think, well, we're in the changeover zone anyway, so might as well get rid of those. Now, I'm not really going to get stuck into doing tons with the bodywork here, but there are some things which feel a bit horrible. It would take quite a while and quite a lot of polishing and buffing to rescue these. There's so many that I can't, at the moment, I can't really. It cost a fair bit to improve with the glue boost stuff, so it's not really what, I don't think it's what you asked for really. So I'm going to leave them as is. We could discuss them later on, but it's a fair amount of work because the glue boost gear, you know, the material is very expensive, but also the amount of time for fine finishing and working the repaired patches and then followed up by an overall buff out is a fairly time consuming process. So I'm not really going to focus on that for a minute. Now the things I'm going to look at very quickly are such things as pickguard covers. See if we've got anything. And I've got a white one kicking about which doesn't quite match. I've got a couple of, how come I've ended up with a couple of these things? That's interesting. Anyway, so I've got a couple of white ones which don't match, but what I'm just going to do is just line this up as regards the size, and I might use one of these to copy to make a custom one. So that's too big. I mean, they'd all work, it's just a question is there one that starts out being nearly the right size, and that one appears to be it, but not lengthwise. So I guess I will make one from scratch, which is okay. I can use one of these as a template, but then I've got the bottom line is I've got to put the holes in the right place after that. So if I were to take that one, and then if I were, of course I won't be able to find the right pen. I should go into town. That's what I should do. I should go in and buy the things I need. For example, some fine pens and some post-it notes to do the world famous Galeazzo Fretwork floating tremolo setup method, and I'm a bit out of post-it notes. Every time I come to use that, his method requires the use of post-it notes, and I forget. No, I don't have them anymore. I've run out. Let's just have a think. Wait a minute. Wait a second. These don't go down there, do they? So it doesn't need this bit. It just needs a cover. Okay, so that can work as my cover. Oh, that won't do. It just need holes in it. So I need a piece of plastic that will give me that, which could be this actually. It'll just about fit. And then I need a piece of material for the back plate. This is what, three ply, so it's unnecessarily complicated. We've got a few of these back plates. Just wonder if any one of those is the right size, which we can borrow. So I'm just going to draw up the outline. Now, what I like to do on this is stick it down, and this is what I also need, some more masking tape, but my supplier is closed until Friday. I ask you, how thoughtless. They've re-roofed the local market, and the guy I buy my masking tape from has the effrontery to be spending the week moving his shop back in from a temporary location back into the market traders hall, and I feel aggrieved that I can't get my masking tape supplies. I'm joking, by the way. I'm really happy that they've got back into the market. They've had to work in these alternative premises nearby, but not ideal, and would not be their first choice of accommodation. I think they've all pretty much all the traders have lost some business, which is not good. Right, so here are my two shapes. Just to make this easier, I'm just going to. It works, but it sort of ends up with these things practically on top of each other. That's okay. So I'm just going to mark the holes that we might get away with, and we can just say for now this is the bottom and this is the top. Actually, probably better off writing it on there, because I'm going to cut that up. Okay, so there's our two shapes. The question I was looking for is, will I get this one out of there? And do you know what? It's like they've already beaten me to it. They can do it, they can get it out there, but it includes a screw hole that I didn't have in there. But just looking at this, it's got a bevel on the edge already, and if we do this from there, we get one screw hole included, which we can then put some more on. 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, the point being is it's spare material, and I'm not likely to need it. So we get here, we have two screw holes, one probably on the end, just about. So it's doable. We could put that on there and mark that off. So just to help it on its way, I'm going to put some of this on here, because as we know, the plastic really doesn't like pen, so you can't mark it in any way that makes it in any way visible. So we can mark these holes so they're visible, and then we can place this on here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this out to the outside of the line. It's going to be necessarily a little bit crude to begin with, because we're going to need to sort of tailor it down as we get closer to the right shape. So a bit of extra on the plastic is better than too little. Come on now. So that's one part of it, and the idea is to just line that up on there and see. Okay, I think we can make that work. I'll just push it into that corner. It's a bit slippery, that's the only downside. And then, okay, according to this, that runs out. So let's drag that up a bit. Sorry about this. 1 second. Let's go to there, go around this. Missed. Around the edge, around the edge, around the edge. Move around if I can. There we are. So that will make pretty nice cover for that, with a bevel, a little bit of a bevel on, with one hole in place, two built in, so whether they work or not, I could try and do it out of a single piece, but I just think this is not gonna look great in this material. Why? Well, I don't know. You wouldn't see it, would you? No, you wouldn't. Let's just try something. Can we fit that on there? I think no, we can't. Typical. Can we fit that on there? Yes, we can. Okay. Put a bit of tape on here. stay in there. Okay. So that one we don't need. So I'm going to cut this out, which will be handy. Again, but be slightly oversized, and I'll aim to flatten off these sides on a sanding block once it's all cut out, because this isn't the easiest stuff in the world to cut anyway. I'm going to use the tin snips, but I could really do with a good quality plastic cutter, but haven't been able to find anything that I find sort of very low temperature plastic cutters which are good for styrofoam if you're American, or polystyrene if you're English-ish, British-ish. But stay where you are. But no, I haven't seen anything that makes easy job of cutting thick pickguard plastic like this. It would be wonderful to have some sort of computer controlled printy thing that does it, but that's a bit wishful thinking. Okay, so that's this, and now I'm looking for not that nor that, but indeed this hole-ish. Hole, and line them all up again, and one will go to get this last one in place. Right, and put a mark on top of those to know where I'm going to drill. Okay, so that's that, and that's that, and that's that. Rubbish, 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 and here's the fun, well, kind of. Not easy to cut, and certainly not easy to cut close to the line with these tin slips. And they want to split the pickguard material. If you're not careful, they will do that. Let's say they sort of work for big chunks to get the thing started, and they do corners well because you can take careful tangents, but they don't like a big flat expanse like this. As you can see, it wants to go in sideways and twist it all out of shape. So you have to sort of get as good as you can get. Right, and while I'm at it, I'm going to chop down this one. Now this may not behave the same way because it's a brittler plastic, but we shall see. So you can see the masking tape was a really good sort of guide marker thing, and you can, if you're going to sand this on a sanding buffing wheel, no, sanding wheel thing, you can keep the paper on, and it sort of gives you a good guide. The alternative is you can actually take a blade and cut round the edge as carefully as you can go, and what you get is to lift off what you don't want. And you can sort of see the black raw plastic that you've got to remove to get down to the line, and by that time you should be testing to see if it fits in and fine-tuning it really. Oops, falling off the edge, and there. accurate. But I've got no choice there, that's the shape of the line, whether you like it or not. Same with around the corner here, which is the hardest bit to clean up, because unless you've got 5 pairs of hands you can't hold it and the paper and the plastic at the same time. Alright, so that gives me a good idea of what I'm aiming for. Okay, for that bit. And then we'll do the same. So we'll keep some of these bits spare, because there's enough material to do small covery things. I'm just going to shove it in there with that. For now, it's probably worth keeping the template, because you might need to recheck with it. But everything else can go out of the way into the rubbish. So this is like a little bit of a diversion, but I just thought, well, while we're at the early stages, we might as well just get this bit taken care of. It'll take a while for those pickups to arrive. I'm kind of curious about them. I've seen people talk about them. I think you'd probably pronounce it ye-buy, not y-buy. But yeah, I've seen people discussing, because they're so cheap and they're direct from one of these Chinese makers, and you always find somebody discussing them in a forum saying, what about these Chinese ye-buy things, are they any good? And you get completely differing views, obviously. Some people say actually they're amazing for the money, and other people say they are awful. And I mean, the first thing that, looking at them and judging by the price, they look like they're not wax potted. That's your first consideration. And if they aren't, assuming they aren't, then obviously what you've got is you're going to have a feedback issue somewhere along the way. So it's hard to say, you know, if it's what Hugh wants at the moment, then that's what we'll go with. But if it's true that what we mostly know about unpotted pickups is that they are very, very prone to feedback, then this may be a false economy, or yeah, I suppose that's in the way of putting it really. It might just be unlivable with, especially if it comes to playing live. That was good. So I'm just doing a little bit extra snipping down here, because anything I can take off in bulk will save me the sort of horror of grinding this off on a sanding drum, which in turn sprays the whole of the shed with tiny plastic particles, which I have to say, it kind of feels like it's one stop to the middle of the ocean when you're doing something like that. It's a horrible feeling. Plastic is plastic. I don't know what else we really reasonably get to do with it, but I wish it didn't exist in some ways. I know I would be paying a tough price if there was no plastic, but I wish we had invented, or wish we'd developed a lifestyle without its destructive influences. Anyway, so here we have, just as a start point, some things to do that with. Again, I don't want to spend too long doing these kinds of things, because it could get quite expensive. I'm going to leave these pickups in here for now, because we'll just wait until the other ones arrive. So we'll get on with the obvious next job, which is the refret. Come on, in you go. Useless drawers. Piece of this. Thank you. We could do it like that. That would hold up, but it makes me nervous, so I shan't. I shall go like this, and then this, and then this, and then something like this out the way-ish. That's not a good idea. Now I've just unsprung a set of strings. Well, want to do is hang a body up. Somebody, anybody. Right. Let's get this out of the way, that out of the way. Keep that for now. Put these off to one side. And I will now go off camera to unpick these strings, whilst at the same time figuring out something else to do with these, which are also reusable sacrificial strings. So I better get them used up at some point, or else they're just going to sit here getting in the way. See you in a minute. Okay, I see. Are you running? Yeah. Well, okay. So look, we are here with the frets lined up, and it's not going to be a very good view. So I could shove you right down in this corner, but that's not going to be a very good view because we don't have much room. Alright, let me drag this back here. Hold on. Not ideal for me, but it's better for the view. So got a little bit of pressure on the clamp just so I can see what I'm doing. No, so I can hold it there and it not move. Now I'm doing it this way around because it's right-handed guitar, so I'm going to do the top part, so that if you get any little bites at the frets, when I say bites I mean between little crimps between the top of the fret, the edge of the fret and the fingerboard, they'll be on the upside as opposed to on the underside of the fingerboard, which is where your fingers would really sense them a lot. So what I'm doing now is I'm just warming up the frets a little bit. I'm getting a start point to get the frets to come out, and the idea is with a little bit of warmth hopefully to soften the wood and the glue around the fret and just to persuade it to come out nicely. Now once again I'm at one of these interesting little decision points, because many times I've refretted necks and I will leave the binding or the bit, the nib, no not the nib, the slot filling material, some sort of lacquer or possibly even glue, I don't know. See, this is where it can get quite hard. If you don't get a bite on the end, the thing won't come out. Sometimes that compresses a little bit on the end. Yeah, so there's two thoughts about this, or two approaches, or two options. I can either leave the end fills in, which looks very tidy and allows me to refret this as if it's a bound guitar, a bound neck, and so I cut the frets with little overhangs to fit inside these little sealed ends. Or now that's the advantage of that is that it's tidy and it looks like it always did. It keeps the original sort of neat finished look. The disadvantage is that it doesn't allow me to get perfectly or very easily in cleaning out the slots very well. So the alternative is to get the fret slot cutting saw. I hate the way they can't bite these things. To get the fret slot cutting saw and recut the slots from all the way through, and that loses you your tidy end fills, if you like, but on the plus side it assures, makes absolutely certain, this is not going, doesn't want to do it, makes absolutely certain that you've cleaned out the fret slot. And cleaning out the fret slot is one of the sort of primary things you need to do to ensure that your new set of frets sits perfectly. And an extra time spent doing that pays off huge dividends in terms of how little fret leveling then you might have to do at the final part when you're setting the guitar up. I've had it in the past where, despite try as you might, you can sometimes get left with a little bit of detritus in the corner just between the end here and the fill part, and it can catch on the tang and just keep the frets sitting up a bit where you really don't want them to be sitting, because that translates then, once they're pressed in and any glue is set, that then translates into effectively a high fret that you've got to take down with fret leveling, which is by definition a destructive process, albeit a necessary one. It's nonetheless destructive, and you're taking away fret metal to achieve a level fretboard. So these were quite low to begin with. They look in relatively good condition as far as, you know, they haven't been played and scarred too badly, but they're quite low to begin with, and they feel very low under your fingers. And I know that Hugh is more of a jumbo frets fan, a bit like I am, I think. So this is a tricky bit, getting that first lift on the fret. These are the right tools for it. Just depends whether you can get that first bite, and necessarily to get that bite you have to get a bit of a dig in, which again can sort of press the wood a little bit. It's usually so little that you don't have a problem, just to be warned. And I've also pulled frets with, I actually pulled a set of frets not long back with just a craft knife blade, and it's entirely possible to do. You just have to work a little harder and get a few more little scars on your fingers while you're doing it. Okay. So that's today. Tomorrow, today is Wednesday. Tomorrow we've got a repair company to come in to get our car, and I think a courtesy car company coming to drop us a replacement off. They're going to take ours away and fix the crash damage from last week in Coventry, where some zombie pulled out into me on a roundabout. So fingers crossed that it isn't considered a write-off economically, because we got a really good deal on that car. And well, you never know what the valuation would be, but I don't want to have to start again armed with a check. Right, there's all our frets out. And so what we have is all this nice fills down the side, and the way I would do it now is I would start checking. I'm not too worried about these little sticky up bits just yet. I mean, we can sand those a little bit anyway, but what I'm interested in doing now is, I'll just move this out of the way, is I would just be looking to see what condition the slot feels like it's in. So I'd use the kind of reverse edge of the blade and just run it down here and just get a feel. So you can see there's some previous gunge in there, which may well be from a fret leveling. Sorry, from a well, I wouldn't say necessarily, maybe the original fretting, but a little bit of detritus. Now that's going to be the challenge, because I'm of the mind, part of me keeps that there because I'm afraid of, I haven't found an adequate material that does this fill the way I like it. Now actually, in some ways that's not a good enough reason to hold off. I think my commitment to the best possible leveled frets has to mean that my reluctance or my uncertainty about what substance to use, or finding the right material to use to fill those little gaps, has got to take second place. Now, in a way, if I were to proceed with this and just get these cleaned out, then I wouldn't have to do any finishing work on there at all. I could just refret, make sure it's cleaned out all the way up to the edge there, I can feel a little bit of sort of goo right in the corners. So that is going to be the challenge on this, is to get this stuff right out up to the edges. And it's, you know, we could keep on doing it, and after a while you probably would get there. You'd get all of that gunge cleaned out like this. That will get in the way of the frets, but if you do it enough, you can get it all out. You'll be fairly confident, and then you can go in and fret over the top of this little clear bit, and everything will be fabulous. I think I'm going to try it one more time like this and just see, because I'm not convinced I can't get all the gunge out, but I have to be very, very careful. In other words, I'm coming right from the outside edge here. I'm leaving some gunge in the corner here, and then I'm going to need to turn this round and be sure that I'm getting it all out. And you can see it sort of kicking up out of the corner. And the danger is, I suppose, of just dragging that backwards and forwards inside the slot. But in a way, if you can get it, if you can put the time in and care, patience to get this cleaned out, it will save a hell of a time on refinishing with fillers and stuff. And I'm going to give it a go this way. I mean, if I pay for it by finding that I've got an uneven set of frets, then I'll pay for it in either refretting the hard way, but I don't think that'll be the case. But I've got to be confident I'm getting all of this grime out, otherwise we will see that stuff coming out now. And it's actually, this is detritus from underneath the fret tang, but it's got to come right out of the slot for us to be confident that we're going to get a good seating. There's quite a bit of gunge in here actually, an unusual amount, but in a way it's quite good because it is coming out very easily and visibly, so just have to kind of keep on digging it out. There's quite a bit in this one, feel it. This slots will always be somewhat deeper than the actual tang we're using anyway, so it doesn't surprise me that it's got filled up with stuff during its first fretting. So that's a load of stuff from that edge, and then I could come the opposite way and just be confident I'm getting as close up to those filled bits. You can see there's quite a bit of goo left in there coming out, but it's a finite amount. You know, you'll eventually get it all out. You just have to be thorough enough to make sure you do. Otherwise, I mean, the only precaution you can take if you're not entirely confident is just to extend your overhang a little bit so that your tang starts just inside of the very edge where you think some of the remaining grime might be collected, but actually getting it pretty much all out. But you can see it's a bit of time, but it's actually less time than it would be if we were making up a filler potion, and then we could fill with a nice wood filler. Maybe I've got a mahogany wood filler that would probably do it. I mean, it's not rosewood, but it's a reddish wood colour. We could fill the little gaps with that, but believe you me, as they say, it's actually a lot harder to get the filler in any meaningful quantity into a little tiny gap like this than you'd think. So getting it in is difficult, and then you have to let it dry, then you have to sand it flush, and then you have to go over the whole of the edge with some lacquer, and then you've got to blend that lacquer in to the rest of the neck, and then you've got to either polish it out or leave it in its matte state, depending. So it's actually quite a fuss to refill those tiny little things. I've only ever seen bits of luthiers making their guitars, seeing they get to a place in the once they've fretted, they come to put these little, they slop all this stuff on, which I think is probably just about the right consistency to go into the gap. Maybe doing what some of this has done, which is to go right underneath the fret and build up under there. But it's a messy business, and of course they're doing that possibly, yeah, I think they're doing that typically before they finish the neck itself. So the refret is always somewhere in a strange process because it's not in the normal sequence of things. Now I've got a nice set of jumbo frets here to chop up. I've got a few sets on the board here, but I'm not going to use one of those for hue because they're all slightly different radius to this. I want this. I'll keep them for when I've got a guitar that I know is coming in at, I think, how they are now, I've forgotten. Can't remember what anyway, I can find out by measuring them, but they're not this 14 that this is. So when you come to bend your, oh, so you're down there now. When you come to bend your frets, it isn't a numbers thing, it's a compare it thing. So we have a radius gaugey thing. So I'm going to bend it up here, but we take one of these and we get our 14 out of it as a guide, and we do a test bend, knowing that this little device changes how it works depending on the gauge you put into it. So that's way too tight a radius because it's a jumbo wire. So I'm going to slack off quite a bit and then put a test piece through. That's too little. Go back a fraction and then try this again, and then just by eye, I suppose, I'm going to just test this against the, you can't see it, I'm testing this visually against the radius curve, so it needs a little bit more, but it's not as much as it had on this one, so I need to bend that one out a bit. So a little bit more, a bit tighter radius needed. Let's have a look at that one. And that is a tiny bit over, which is fine because I prefer it was a little more than rather than less, so it grips the side of the neck, if anything. So I'll run it through here twice, and then I'll put the other one, just double check it again, yep, and then put the next one on. I'm hoping we might have a spare bit. Usually, if we're very careful, we can get in on using two lengths of this. So the idea now is to line this up with some cutters and cut this to size and just rest it on the neck. And we'll need to do an overhand cut as well. So starting with here, I'll give that a little bit of room. I'm going to cut like this. Now it's almost impossible to cut this without getting a slight twist in the fret tang. You will get it unless you had a laser beam or a file of some kind. So I'm cutting it and it's giving me a little twist, but that twist will be removed. So with an overhang cut like this, we can afford to cut quite close. If I was this was going to be cut through and laid in full length, I'd want it to stick out a bit further because I won't be, in that case I wouldn't be cutting off the tang, I would be filing it flat and it would retain the twisted part caused by the pliers. So it's just one of those things you sort of get to know. So with an overhang, like I say, I can afford to cut closer, which means I'm more likely to get a complete set out of the two pieces than if I was recutting the slot and I intended the steel of the fret or the metal of the fret to go right to the edge and be visible as a sort of T-shaped thing. So this is the birth of the new frets just here. And I'm going to get to the end here with a tiny bit left over, but not much. And then we move to the next one. Now the next one starts with a little bit of a flat spot in both cases, so I'm going to cut it a little bit longer because I don't want to have to deal with a flat spot there. It's hard to bend out that flat spot, so I'm going to just check it again in a minute. There it is, yeah. So I'm going to basically remove it by treating it as waste. Okay. And then we're onto the curves. So it's good to keep an eye out for that. Sometimes you'll get a flat spot if you've maybe, if you've started by bending the wire to too flat a radius, and then you've redone it and reshaped it to the correct radius, but sometimes that very first bit won't react and won't reshape when you rebend it, so you end up having it as possibly a bit of material to lose. So, now we'll be home and dry with what, 4? Oh no, maybe we won't. We'll be short of 1, methinks. And that's where we hope that we've got some spare in here. But I don't think we have. I think we've got stuff ready to go in sets. Okay, so the only other thing I can hope for is that we've got a spare piece. Now, is this the same jumbo, StewMac jumbo? It's a shame. That's a whole set. I might as well just use a bit of what's already in there. I do have some more lying around. That's the only thing, and I don't know where it is. There's the occasional spare piece. Now that's medium. Yeah. Oh well. Better to be safe than sorry. So I'll cut a piece from one of these things here, which means kind of I've got 1 complete set left. Sorry, 2. I've got one hanging up, and one hanging up, and 1 in this combination of bits here. But not ideal. Still, it's time to put in an order for some more, and in doing so, pay Her Gracious Majesty a whole load of cash for the pleasure of importing America's fret wire into Britain. I'm just going to put this through the little bender. I had to cut enough. You couldn't really do it with a single piece or short piece, so I had to sacrifice a bit here for this. What's this gunge on here? A bit of grease or something. Right, so again we've got a little bit of a flat spot there right at the beginning, which I'm going to get rid of, and then go for this. So I'm going to hang up this bit as a spare in case one of them doesn't cut the way we want and I have to bin it. Now another aspect, I'll put it next to the other jumbo stuff there, but it's for us. Right, another thing about this, having first of all, well, let's carry on cutting or getting the frets ready. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut an overhang part on each fret like that, and I actually probably want to take a tiny bit more like that, and then cut just where it's a bit funny, and we just get a bit of I don't know what the word is, just get it just squared off a tiny fraction. Now what I've then got is I've got a fret that's, I can now mark the end here, cut this short and undercut the overhang thing here again, and that gives me, I don't know how well you can see that, but that gives me a tang that's inset of the edges, and should sink straight into the slot, missing the corners where there might be still that little tiny bit of gunge. Now the other thing I really ought to do with this, first of all I'm going to run all the way down this side first and get these one edge done, but what I also will do once I've got these frets prepped, then I'm going to go down the fingerboard and just sand with a little tool. I'm going to sand down these little crusty edges of the slot here, and because this whole thing is about making sure that all of these frets sit as flush to the surface of this fingerboard as is possible, and that's partly achieved by, as I say, cleaning the slot out so there's nothing obstructing it, but another part of it is achieved by making sure that's level. Now you can do it by re-radiusing the whole neck, sorry, the whole fingerboard, which is again a little bit time consuming, and it isn't strictly necessary if there's nothing, you know, if the condition of this is not poor, if it's not being corroded, dented, scratched, worn out in some way, which it hasn't. It's in good condition. And look, it has that nice, slightly well played shine to it, which is a quality that you don't necessarily want to just throw away. It just makes everything look new, and it's a very different feel. I said that like it's a bad thing. It makes everything look new, and that's a different feel. So in a situation like this, you still need to pay the attention to getting rid of these little crusty bits that stick up, and we'll do that with a small tool that basically sands very thin. It's a homemade tool. It's made from a piece of jumbo fret wire which has been detanged, so it acts as a little sanding file, and we'll use that just to sand inside of that footprint where these fret crowns are going to sit. So if you don't have the frets in there, you will see where I've sanded, but with the frets in there, the crown will sit over that part. These jumbo frets are at the moment performing beautifully well, and I'm cutting them and everything's doing what it should. So I'm going down one side, cutting the overhang bit, leaving these frets stick out just a little fraction at this end, so there's room to file them down with the beveling edge file thing, but not so far sticking out that we get a great big piece sticking out that we've got to file down with some other device, because regular files start to very easily damage the edge of the fingerboard. Sometimes you just can't avoid it, but it's preferable to keep that filing to a minimum. Also, because the other reason is that if you think about a fret sticking out a long way, as soon as you start hitting that with any kind of file, it's going to sort of put pressure on the fret in the slot and possibly try and drag it out and maybe weaken its seating or something. So, oops, left you up a bit. I spoke to my eldest son yesterday, who very kindly, we were talking about, I was talking about cameras in here, and he said, for your birthday then, he said, I'm going to give you my old, I asked him the price of his GoPro session thing that he bought a few years ago, and he said, tell you what, I don't use it, so you can have it for your workshop. So we might have an option of a new camera which will still do something very similar. I think it will still be a wide angle lens, but it could be that I set it to a more narrow angle, because there is a way by which you can monitor, using that camera, it can monitor to an iPhone what you're seeing. And that's one of the reasons I don't use this camera on a wide angle, because I can't see what it's pointing at. As soon as you have it on a narrower angle, I should say, you have to be very careful about where it's pointing, because you'll very quickly, easily lose things out of the field of vision or out of the frame. So you suddenly, if you narrow the angle down, you suddenly find you have to be moving the camera much more, and of course without being able to see what it's looking at, there's no point moving it, because I can't tell whether it's on or off the subject. So that's why the sports camera wide angle is a definite get out of jail type of thing, because there is almost no place you can put it that it doesn't see what you're doing. It's such a nice wide angle, so it's very sensible for this sort of thing. But I understand that some people find it a bit kind of puke inducing, to put it one way. Now what I'm doing is I'm just marking these a bit to just to the outside of the fretboard, and I'll cut as close as I can to, let's say, the middle or inside of the marker pen, and then cut the overhang for the other side. And it's just my way of getting some of that removal work done, so we don't have to hit these things with such a big file operation at the other end. So chop, undercut, place. There you go. Chop, undercut and place, and so on and so on. And that's the name of the game, followed by that little bit of sanding along the top of the slot where it was crunchy with, actually it's not, I was going to say glue, but it's not usually glue, it's usually finger grease and other such good substances, which could be fast fret or whatever, or I don't know, autosol or whatever people use to polish frets, but it's usually mostly goo from the finger oils and stuff builds up. Anyway, it's no surprise. Musicians can be sweaty devils. So just whizzing along, shortening these. Now as you know, you can see there's lots of little bits of fret flying around this workshop now, which will get vacuumed up as Henry gets a nickel steel feed. But it just mainly falls where it will. This jumbo wire does, in terms of cutting and undercutting, it does behave very dependably. I've not really screwed up one of these yet. I did a set of frets the other day on JT's parts caster strap, and it seemed like every other one that I cut was miscutting. Well, that one did. That just goes to make a fool of me here. Okay, that's okay. It sort of fell off in the end. So yes, as soon as you speak about it, it happens twice in a row. So anyway, this jumbo fret wire is terrible for failing to cut properly. Anyway, I'm not going to speak about it. I'm just going to get on with it. So jobs on the bench equal this guitar, waiting for pickups to arrive, but doing the fret leveling first. This guitar, then I've got JT's parts caster to build now that the final pickup has arrived. The final of 2 pickups has arrived, and then we can get that underway. And then I've got 3 more of his to do as well. So it's a bit of a family guitar outing from JT's house. So it's going to keep me busy up to and including the weekend. After which I might want to take a day off because I seem to just keep going. It's a problem with working for your own business, you know, working for yourself. You don't really tend to recognise weekends. You just get on and do whatever you have to do as soon as you can, because you need to for your cash flow. You know, it's never a lifestyle business like this is never that much money flowing around that you can sit back and take a nice holiday or anything like that. I think you tend to, by the way, this is no complaint. You tend to what you gain in satisfaction and quality of experience, you tend to lose in good old hard corporate commercial capitalist cash. Anyway, so just that's that bit there done. I'm going to do my usual thing to put these safely out of the way. Which will have a fly paper, fret fly paper. Now these might struggle to come up a bit because they're sitting quite tightly in the slots, but that's not too bad. Right, there we have Hugh's new set of frets, which are going to sit right over here, out the way. Then I'm going to find the little tool thing. Now, if I can't find it, I'm going to have to make another one, which is really a bit naff because I've had this for quite some time and it's done a really good job. Oh, it's in here. Well, it is in here. Actually, what it needs is some new. Actually, no, it's got new sampling. So there we are. That was a bit of a faff, but lots of sharp things to stick into you. In too small a pot, I think is the. I think we need some more. We need some more containers here. Anyway, sit there. Right. So we've got this little device. Sorry, you're falling off with. We've got this little device, and it's a piece of detanged fret bent. So it's got a little handle, and I put it on there and hold it down with my other arm. And then all I have to do is just rub it up and down the slot and not too much further either side, so we don't want a great big stripe building, but that just brings it all down to a nice level, and then, as I say, that will be neatly covered up with the crown of the next fret. Now you might be saying, how do you know what radius this is? Well, this is only one radius, this little tool, and I don't actually know what it was, but it's doing the job. So I can feel it's lowering that. And like I said, if you wanted to, and your fingerboard was in a perhaps a more tired condition, instead of doing this, you could do the whole thing with a radius block, or even very lightly with some, I don't know, something like 400 grit paper. I think this is 220 actually, but you know, some lowish, highish grit paper. And just make sure that all of it's out there so it doesn't collect and undo what we were just doing before, which was cleaning it up. But you can see it leaves a little stripe going in the opposite direction, but it's pretty effective, and you know, as long as you keep it in the same, pretty much in the same little narrow side to side slot, you'll get the thing cleaned up without too much bleed either side. And again, we could go over with a knife if we need to, but you can feel the difference between this and these bits. And I would be worried if I fretted on top of those that the little sawtooth with the bits of leftover crunch and grime would unseat the frets a little bit. So this is a much better way of making sure you've got a good surface to fret to. Especially with my method, which is to use a bit of super glue to speed it up and guarantee it stays down at the ends and sits firm. So super glue has a little bit of something to bite to there if it has, you know, if it's flat. That's the main thing. So it's good for precision placement, but also adherence when there's glue on the underside of the crown. Now, I'm out of compressed air, hence I'm doing that. Normally, in the good old days, I would have just fired my compressed air tin at that. But when you're a pauper, you've got to do the best you can do with what you've got. So this is one of those things that I can't stress enough how important this little bit is. If you don't do this, this is the amount that you can feel here, the difference you can feel here between the little sticky up crunchy bits and the smooth down bit once I've sanded it. That difference is enough to cause the frets to sit or choke off or a fret to buzz when you've leveled everything else. It's a really, we are talking such tiny clearances at that stage that it's significant. You know, it really makes a difference. Now, you will always get to a level set of frets if you're prepared to fret and then do a precision fret level, which I'm always prepared to do and usually end up having to do anyway. But if you take care, this will mean you have to remove less fret metal when it comes to the precision fret leveling, and also doing this is the only way you're going to stand any chance of getting a completely level rack of frets the first time, and that's very rare anyway because it is such tiny clearances. It's almost impossible to achieve it by design. But once in a while, if you get all of these parts just right, and the fates and fortunes are with you and everything chooses to sit perfectly in place, just once in a while you will get it so that you can just put the frets in, and lo and behold, it'll play and you won't need any fret leveling. And there's nothing quite as satisfying as when that happens. You want to shout about it, and I want to shout about it, and make sure I mention it in Facebook and everywhere else. Look, didn't need fret leveling. There's only a couple that applied to. It's a small percentage, but as I say, very, very satisfying when it happens, or when you make it happen, I should say. But this little tool was just I think I started with a cable tie, and it wasn't quite rigid enough, so I innovated with this, and it's been perfect. It's got the right radius, just about the right radius, and it's stiff enough to retain its shape, and as you can see, it still gives me this little handle to effectively pull it from side to side. And yeah, we're nearly there. Oops, nearly missed that one. And you can, if the radius is too curved on the little tool, you can press down in the middle and make sure you get the top of the fingerboard really, the top of the hill. So 4 more to go, and then I'll leave the refret part till a bit later. What I might do is, off camera, I might just do a bit of cutting and shaping of those electrical covers, plates, and a few bits and pieces off camera. Hello, merry wife of Tavistock. The good wife of Tavistock. Just using my homemade tool to remove the prickly, sticky up bits to ensure the smoothest possible fret seatings, because it makes such a difference at such tiny clearances. This can make the difference between needing a precision fret level or not. Very nice. Yeah. Right, I'm going to stop, do some other fiddlings, drink my tea, see you in a minute. Well, just a little update for you there. I realised I had a spare one of these in a Chinese tremolo, Floyd Rose alike tremolo system. This fits absolutely perfectly, and it actually might work better height wise. It looks a fraction taller, higher than, thicker than the existing one, but we're changing the frets up quite a big gauge jump, so actually I'm going to try it out. This might be a better fit in terms of it's a better colour because it fits with the rest of the black motif. Anyway, so we shall see. Anyway, I've got some more of those little screws ordered, bolts, nuts, cap bolts. I've got some more ordered, so that's going to be no problem. A pack of 20 for the grand sum of £1.40. So I'll have lots of spares knocking about for future use. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to line this up for the fretting part of things, because really I might as well get on and do that as anything else, although I've got about 6 other guitars lined up to do. But that's a luxury problem which I am not complaining about at this point. So just bear with me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change around this thing here, which is always a bit of a mess about. That can go there, that can go in there. This can go back where it belongs. I'm going to move these over here. Everything gets moved at this point. It's not ideal, but I have to say it's better than not having a fret press at all. And that comes off there and goes somewhere else for a minute. Stick on there, thank you. Hold on. Back on there. This is one heavy lump. It's in the way of cardboard. So basically, to get it to sit where I want it to, I have to mess about a bit. Give a bit of push and pull. Right, and I shouldn't have put that back because I need it. Okay, very good. So, in the pursuit of fretting, we're going to need some of the old cocktail sticks. We're going to need, eventually, the beveling block. We're going to need the caul, fretting caul, for that to sit in there. We're going to need a variety of glues and debonder stuff. I do need to get in some fresh supplies. Now that's thick glue. Let's use the stuff in the black thing. In fact, I'm almost out of debonder, which is okay, but must go on shopping list. Note to self, the consumables list. Get me a whole load of tissue paper prepared. So I'm going to fret this guitar tonight, and then it's really going to park it for a while until the other pickups arrive and also my little cap bolts arrive. Well, I may not need to wait for those for that, but I'll wait for obviously the pickups before I do much else. So I'll get the fretting done and the fine sort of filing and stuff like that. Get the neck pretty close to ready to go, and then it will be a case of fit the new pickups, test them out, make sure they work, and then do the setup and any fret leveling that's necessary. That will probably be towards the end of the week. So I think as of tomorrow I'll be whatever. Yeah, I think as of tomorrow I'll be doing JT's parts caster, which is a made in Korea Squire with some really cool bits on it, new bits to go on it. So now I'm going to open this glue, and I tend to use quite thick super glue, so we shall see how this works. And I need my debonder glue there, debonder there, and I need something for the purpose of scraping at the, where's it gone? Something for scraping up any leftover glue or spilled glue, and there's one in here that I use which has now buried itself. Right, okay, so to begin with, let's try this. We've got a, what did we say, we've got a 15-inch radius, so we don't have a lot of alternatives here, so we're going to have to go with the 12 to squeeze it in, because we don't have, I've only got 16 beyond that, and that's not going to be, in my book, it's not going to be, it's not going to really do it, not as well as I'd like. So let's go with 12 and see how it presses. Just missing a tiny bit there. sure that's cleaned up. Okay, I think I've double checked this, but I'm pretty certain everything's cleared out. He said clearing a bit more out. You can see it builds whatever gets caught in the corner. But we should be clear of that. I've got this good overhang cut and everything generally feels pretty clean down the slots, so I don't anticipate anything sticking up. Right, let's get our frets to hand, and we'll start with this hand, and we'll start with the 16, sorry, the 12. Stick that back on here, and then one more thing I'll need for this is my bungee rubbery thing, which can hook onto my special bungee screw here. It comes up and hooks onto there, like that. That can go on there. Right, so first things first, we get some glue. Yeah, it's nice and thick glue. I managed to decant this out of the pink CA glue pot, which was basically turning into a pot of molasses or something. It was getting so thick with age. Now here we go. I'm just going to place this so that that tang clears any rubble area, and then basically just going to gently align that with that, and then squeeze the old thing on there and give it a quick grab with the arm. While that's doing that, I get me a bit of paper, and where possible, as much as possible, wipe out the excess super glue, and then clean it out. And then we can also give it a rub down with any super glue debonder if required. I'm just going to have a look and see how this is seated for a second. Yeah, that is I'm going to go flatter again on this before it sets. I think I do need the 16 as well to press it flat, otherwise we're going to get it only curved. Oh, come on. Do what I'm asking of you, please. Come on. There are things where you need to do in a hurry, always tricky. Get this on here, level it up, get it on there. So now we're pushing with a slightly flatter one. I'm going to try and get it to just press flat in the middle. So this is the 16. Let's have a look at that. We shall see. Might stick to the 16 then if that's the way it's looking. So that was the 12 was a bit too curved for the. We've got a 15. It's nearer the 16, and I went 12. And so what it did was it clamped the edges, but didn't push in the middle of it far enough for my liking. So let's have another quick look and see what we ended up with. That's better, although it's I'm wondering what it's telling me. Is it telling me that this is actually okay, well I'm just looking at this and I'm not happy with this first fret. Okay, something about this that isn't right. So I'm going to do the unthinkable. I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to give it a bit of a clean down. Now, something about that wasn't working for me. It could be that I pressed it in with too to curved a thingy, whatever that's called, insert the 12 radius, and perhaps just it's telling me I shouldn't have done that, and that's the price I paid because it fixed it in place, and that was that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try one more time. I'm just going to clean this out as best I can. I'm going to cut a new one. Actually, I won't do the first one to begin with. I'll put this to one side as a reject, like we've got a bit spare, and this time I'm going to go with 16 from the start. Let me just double check this because I'm pretty certain this was a good radius. We shouldn't have had that sticking up like that. I mean, the reality is we're going to go with the radius of the frets at the end of the day. So I'm going to go with this next one, and we're going to press it with 16. We're going to see how that ultimately works out, and then we'll work with that. Okay, so a little bit of this ultra thick glue into the slot, in with our tang, feed it in, and then line up and clamp. I don't want to put too much pressure on it. That last one I did because it wasn't seated right from the start, so I'm going to don't want to be pushing as hard on all the other ones, so I'm just going to start with a normal press on this one and see how it seats, how it ends up, and hopefully that will work okay. The question is, I mean, the main thing is, as long as we get them all the same, it doesn't matter if they're technically a tiny bit off the actual radius, as long as they're all seated the same according to the radius here and this, the way it interacts with this insert, and you will get the same kind of seating all the way across, even if it's not exactly matching. That's fine. That's much better. So I won't freak out about that. I'm going to move on, do all the others, come back and take another go at this first one. If you're in a situation where you run out of, as I might do, or don't have any of this stuff, debonder, you can always clean that area with a blade later on, to get rid of any excess glue. It's not the ideal, it's not what you want, but it's perfectly doable if you don't have the debonder stuff. This glue is very thick, to say the least. It is gungy. Alright, so I'll carry on. A bit of sanding outside of the crown sort of footprint here on this one, but again, with a bit of oiling, that will tidy that up as well, so you hardly notice. So while I'm clamping these, I can, for example, replace or use where did I put the spare? Make a replacement. Oh, sorry, Morris. Jeez, sorry. Don't trod on you. I'm sorry, my friend. Oh dear, you snuck in there without me hearing you. That could have been, yes, that could have been a horrible. Now you're going to get the sticky stuff on your feet now. Right, it's not the best place for you. Right, hang on, hold on. Oh yikes, this is all, come on. Anything you tread on is going to go wrong, you know it. Oh, lost all your mane, haven't you? Especially since you pulled most of it out. Now you're stepping on my sticky stuff now. I told you, this is not good. Come on, you fool. Get down there. That nearly went badly wrong. For him, not for me. Off you go, don't play with your mates. Morris lots of mates. He's got a new mate actually. Now where did I go with a? Here it is. Yeah, he's got a mate at the moment who's a stray that we've been feeding, and who basically got injured, and we've been. He doesn't appear to have an owner or have any owners, but you can't always tell. People might say that about our Morris's mum, who just took off and has gone to live with someone else, and may come back in a few months. That's what she does. And I suppose while she's away, people will be saying, "Well, she's got no one who looks after her, and nobody's taking her to the vet. She's neglected." But this one had a pretty severe injury on his throat. He'd been obviously gashed by another animal, and yeah, it looks looking good. And so we couldn't really do anything with him. We didn't take him to the vet. But what we were able to do was just keep feeding him a lot, so that he's as much as we could do to keep his health and strength up. And it seems to have worked a treat actually, because he's got over it. And I think I've mentioned on another video, there was a tragic night when I was feeding him on the deck out here, and he had a huge abscess on his here, and it was oozing while he was eating. It was pretty grim, and it looked about as bad as it could get. I thought we might, chances are we might soon not see him again, because it was so badly infected. But he seemed to get over that worst bit, and he's looking a lot better, and he's much friendlier as well. But I think he's also got used to us as a sort of surrogate family, a family of suckers who just keep on feeding him endlessly. But why not? He's a nice creature. And the cats, Morris and his sister Yummy, they seem to get on quite well with him, and he's desperate to come in the house and be with the rest of the family, but he's not allowed, not least because I think he's an unsnipped tom. I'm pretty sure he's an unsnipped tom, and the last thing we need is a whole bunch of male cat issues going on. We've already got Sid, who's a bit territorial, and he does a sort of a low-key marking thing, which drives me mad. I manage to catch him most of the time, but he tries to spray onto the one piece of, or a wall by the bin actually, and so I have to keep catching him and throwing him out, or washing it down and starting again. But if we added another male cat into the mix, that would just be, we'd probably start the other one up as well, and it'd just be a mess. So it's a no-no. It's quite sad leaving him outside. I'm so tempted to bring him in, but I can't. This thing is getting pretty beautifully gummed up. There aren't really any containers that work very well without sliming glue everywhere. Nice squeeze to get them in. Like I say, the way that the fret ultimately sits is a combination of the radius you've bent the wire to, the actual radius of the guitar neck, the insert you're using in your press call, and yeah, it's not a precise thing. So we want them all to be nicely seated, but I have to recognise that they may be millifractions out on each other. We get we go as close as we can. Be very careful as well. It's very tempting to to balance up the insert as you're pressing the coil down, it's very tempting to press on the wood, and you can leave marks very easily because it's soft as anything, rosewood really, or at least it is to marking anyway. Look at this, this is like, we're almost solid glue now. I don't want to try mixing it with anything else to thin it out, because it's just going to make some sort of chemical that isn't actually super glue. It's sort of counterproductive, because you think you're getting thinner glue, or what you're getting is something that just doesn't stick, which happens to be thinner, but is useless. So note to self, try and position the insert by pressing it on the fret itself, of all things, if you're going to do it. And that will minimise the amount of marks you leave on the wood. I love it. Yeah, those days, or those moments where you just throw both things you're holding on the floor in one supremely uncoordinated spasm is the right word. I'm reluctant to use it, but it is the correct word. Something of a spasm. Okay. Yeah, definitely top of my shopping list is debonder, which isn't that, that's glue. Although it is in a debonder container, that's probably why I'm a little confused. Shalaki. I decanted it out. Anyway, soon to be featured in the We Love Guitars workshop is the build of Nick's Koa caster, which, after having spec'd it out to feature Hawaiian Koa, we I think it was only afterwards we realised that Koa made a neat little anagram of oak. Pure chance. It really wasn't planned. And anyway, so that is due to be worked on. The body's down there. Nick has, I think, now agreed or settled on the final shape, which is a little bit different from what, tiny bit different from what we've got in the design down there, but not a huge amount. It's actually shortening the body a little bit. And then it's time to start practicing doing some carving, because the neck and the the neck and the headstock nut part of it, it's not got a headstock, but you know what I mean, the nut part is on its way, or will be shortly on its way. So we'll be at that point where it's time to get the build on the go. Okay. Yep. That was a good call. You see, pulling that one, it feels like a loss. You know, you get going, and then you realise it isn't how you want it, and you call time on it, as we say in the UK. I'm calling time. I think that comes from a pub figure of speech. Time in a pub where the licensee, the landlord, calls time on the drinkers. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, when you have a situation like that, you've got to have the confidence to just call time on it and pull it. If it isn't working, pull it. Don't walk on and end up with a whole pile of crap trying to make it work when it isn't. You know, you have to stop and you've got to face that question, which is, what is happening here? What did I do? And you could see that pretty quickly I worked out that I was using the wrong insert, and it was actually doing more harm than good. Sometimes when it's close, an over curved insert can be a real help, because it can help push down the ends if there's a tendency for them to want to sit up. But in this case it was so far off the ideal, or off the actual radius, that it was pushing down the ends nicely, but it was failing to push down the centre, which meant we would have ended up with a kind of 12-inch radius on this, because the frets would sit like that. They'd all be at 12 inches, whereas the neck was more like that. So I think the moral of the story is if you do that, you can sometimes use that over radiusing to push down the edges. But and I think about it now, I would always normally follow up with the flatter of the two inserts as well, which I tried to do, but I think because I hadn't planned it that way, I think I left it too long and it wasn't sitting right. So, you know, and then at the minute you recognise it's not working, is stop it and reassess. It's too important, you know, to get this right. This is the heart of the guitar, you know, and people sometimes think, you know, like to think the heart of the guitar is the pickups. You know, it's like the engine. But actually, you know, it's a bit like a car. The real heart of a car isn't, well, not the heart. The essence of a car isn't the engine. I mean, you could say it's the heart of it, but the bit that makes a car what it is, your experience, is the chassis and the handling. You know, yes, it's great having a nice engine and all the rest of it, but if you rev it and it doesn't go anywhere and it doesn't handle, then it's a hateful car and you won't drive it. So this is a bit like this with the guitar. The neck and the fretboard is the soul of it, really. It's mainly all there is. The other stuff helps, you know, like great pickups and nice tuners, but the point is, if you don't have a superb playing neck, then there's no point having great pickups, because you just won't play it, and so nobody will really benefit from the great pickups. And you know, most of the reasons you would ever put a guitar down and walk away from it, in the longer term, I don't mean in the shop, but most of the reasons, if you've bought a bunch of guitars, the reason that you end up not playing one but playing one of the others is almost universally because it doesn't stay in tune and it doesn't play well. They're really simple parts of, you know, what's going on. Oh, somebody sent me some money. Okay. Selling ebooks. It's quite cool, isn't it? Little thing goes ka-ching and says, "You've sold another one." I better go in the house and do the link sending malarkey. I remember a comment on YouTube when I first made that ebook, and I think I put a note on YouTube, and I remember somebody telling me, was at pains to tell me that I'd chosen the wrong strategy for selling it. It's a really difficult one to do, because if you're not, you know, an experienced publisher of stuff, and you're doing something, you know, like this that you believe in, and you kind of have a sort of idea of its worth, and so on and so on, and actually an idea of what the people who you want to buy will pay for it, then you go with that. And I did, but it was quite a challenging thing, because you know, you can sell an ebook for anything from 99p or less up to, you know, you see some of these medical textbooks or law books and so on for, you know, textbooks, reference books for like 70 quid, 80 pounds, 100 pounds if it's some, you know, government report. I don't know, almost you know, an uncapped upward price. And so I remember somebody coming on YouTube and telling me quite harshly that I'd chosen a stupid strategy, and it was, you know, who would pay $24.99 for a book, and if anyone, they didn't say it was stupid enough, but if anyone were to buy it, it would be very, very few. And he said that it was the difference between whether I would, I don't know, what is it, pay off my mortgage and retire or something, or make just a few sales. And in a way, I think it turns out both he and I were right, and that for me, I knew that the strategy I've chosen was the right one for me, because more than anything, I wanted to be selling a product at the price that was right, that was a worthwhile, you know, the right price representing value to the people who I knew it would represent value to. And when you, I think when you know that that's what you're setting out to do, and you know that therefore that, you know, the people who you want to buy will pay X amount, it's kind of wrong to go against that and go, no, I know, I'm going to go against that. I'm going to try and sell to anybody and everybody who's ever been interested in a guitar or played a guitar. I'm going to imagine I'm going to sell to that huge worldwide audience of people, anyone who's ever strummed a guitar, and I'm going to dream that I can sell 200,000 or, you know, 1,000,000 of these books, and therefore I'll charge 99 cents per. Now, of course, the thing is, you'll never know whether he was right technically or I was right, because you know, you can only test it one way, really. But it seems to me the logic is there are only so many people who are going to want to set up their guitars and use my fret leveling method and so on to do it. And that is a tiny fraction of the people who've played guitars, which is not as many people who just, you know, have an ordinary life and read books and might buy books on a, you know, novel or whatever. That's a mess. You know, so the minute you go from, when you look at it in the eye, you realise that the dream of getting rich and paying off your mortgage or buying your Lamborghini because you've sold to millions of guitar playing people worldwide, it's not a real dream. It's a pipe dream. It's a tiny, it actually is a really small market when you get down to it. So the choice was for me between selling at a premium price to a small but qualified market of people who, you know, over time have watched my stuff, and it doesn't matter whether they like me or not. It's not about liking, but who've seen my stuff or the approach I take and producing results that they can see on the videos. It's not about me arguing that it's great, you know. So people can see it and hear it. They hear the notes cleaning up. They hear the guitar playing better. So, you know, I decided to sell to a smaller net number of people who I and they would be confident that what they were buying represented real value to them. And so that's the path I went down. And you know, does it sell? How many would I say it sold worldwide at the moment? I don't know, 300, something. I don't know. I keep getting little underwhelming. No, I'm not. I sound ungrateful. I'm not ungrateful. I keep getting small Kindle and iTunes royalty checks, I suppose they call it, payments. You know, and you know, okay, so for every one of those little notifications I get, I realise that was money I could have had as a direct sale. But you know, having said that, it's a very pleasing thing, very satisfying thing to be selling a small number of things at a quality, you know, premium price to people who, so far, universally, I haven't heard anyone feeling like it wasn't value for money. And a lot of people have written and talked about the great results they've achieved, and so on. So it's, you know, getting a premium price for that, whilst giving people some value. I think that's a fine strategy, and I don't care that I will never have tested it the other way around to see whether I would have retired and bought my Learjet or what. You know, I think that's the land of J.K. Rowling. I think Rowling. Anyway, so you know, whether the guy who made that criticism could have been technically right in one sense or not, it doesn't matter to me. You know, what matters is the decision I made at the time has ended up feeling like a good choice, and the choice felt good, and the outcome has felt good from that. So I think there's nothing else to, nothing else to worry about really. And the rest of it is just a game of, well, what if? Well, so what if? What if, you didn't get this illness, or what if you didn't get run over on that day, or what if you'd won the lottery on this day? Pointless. It's what is. And so here I am doing something I enjoy, as you know. Those of you who know my stuff, I'm a bit of a fretting freak. Doing something I enjoy for somebody I respect and like, getting paid something for doing it in my shed, my home. And while I'm doing that, a little bleep comes in and says, someone else has just bought your ebook. So it's not bad, is it? Not complaining at all. That's what that one was. Come on. Who's on my case? Nothing. Yeah, I'm going to sort that out. Max, it's coming. Alright. I'll just get these last frets in, then I will return to the safety of the house and sort out your link. Yeah, and I'm not one to give advice, but I would say the only thing I know about strategy and with regards to reloved guitars is that if you're like me, well, I'll put it another way. I've developed over the years an ability to trust what I think feels right for me, and I don't feel obliged, or I don't succumb to pressure to do what other people think I should. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't listen or take advice, not at all. I mean, but what I mean is when it comes to making a decision that is about you and your stuff that matters to you or you believe in, I'm the kind of person who knows, or I'm able to trust that decision, so that when I thought about the ebook, it felt right to do it that way, and so I do it that way, and there's no real looking back or reconsidering or regret about it. And to make all decisions that way is a really nice thing to be able to do, because this feels very, I suppose in the corporate world they'd say authentic or credible. But it's simple because I'm not in strategizing. I'm not having to be something I'm not. So I'm not with the ebook, for example. I'm not pursuing some strategy that's not right for me. It doesn't suit me. I'm doing what suits me, and if it doesn't, if somebody in somebody else's hands, if they could have made millions and bought a yacht, that's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm happy with how it's working for me, and that's the main thing. If you can be content with the choices you've made and the way it works for you, then therein I think lies happiness. Because you can find people who've made some other decisions and they're making the millions and paying their mortgage off and driving around in a Lamborghini on the Florida Keys or whatever it is they want to do, and yet because something about the choices and decisions aren't right in here, they can be miserable even with all that, all those markers of success, all those signs of success. So I'm happy with how it's worked out. Thank you, Mr. YouTube advisor. But great thing is if somebody else was writing their ebook, and if it felt right for them to pursue a strategy of 99 cents trying to sell to millions of people, then maybe that would work out for them. Sticky, and the thing is, it would work out however it works out, and providing it's in keeping with that person's beliefs and ways of doing things, then it will always be the right decision. That's my take on it anyway. I think one of the nice things I remember sitting here playing guitar with Malcolm in the house one day, not long after I'd put the ebook up, published it, and I remember being there playing the guitar on a, I don't know, Thursday afternoon or something, and the little bling ching thing went off to tell me that I'd got money. I suppose it's a PayPal alert, isn't it? Anyway, it told me I got money, and I'm thinking to myself, this could be heaven or this could be hell. No, I'm thinking to myself, how cool is that? You know, playing guitar and getting some money. Come on, nearly out of this stuff. Yeah, it's like, that's not bad. Things could be worse, you know. So my advice is actually quite interesting, because I was reading a book a while back, and it's actually a very good book. There are not many business how-to books that I like. They tend to be a bit sort of cringy in different amounts, but for different reasons. But I was reading a book, I've forgotten the author's name now, but I was reading listening to an ebook called Oversubscribed, and really got the principle behind it. You know, a lot of it really worked for me, in theory, and in some ways I'm by default doing some of this writer's advice or a lot of this writer's advice, I suppose, with Re Love Guitars, but also some of it kind of goes against, but doesn't quite work with what I'm doing. But anyway, one of the things he talks about is, I just heard it again the other day. It was quite a strident chapter where he's saying that the days of selling information are over, and I know what he was getting at. He's sort of saying that in this day and age you give away information in order to attract clients, and clients are people you sell your real service to, or your premium service. So, like for example, give away all your YouTube videos about guitar stuff, and he would say then your real customers are, he says, people who pay you to execute things for them, not people. So for example, I'll give it a crude example would be, let's say you give away loads of information on private plane making, right? Kit plane making or something like that. You're an aviation enthusiast, and you give away all this stuff on how to make and improve flying machines, and you give that for free. You don't write, he would say, you don't write an ebook and sell it to people. You just give it away, podcasts, videos, whatever, and you get an interested customer base. And then what you sell is to a couple or a few score people who subscribe to your stuff. You sell your services to go and, let's say, project manage building them a warplane, or a warbird, or an ancient plane, or a private aircraft, or whatever. So you help them in, you sell your services to execute a project, rather than try and sell them a different ebook every week about airplane building. And I see what he's getting at, but of course the Re Love Guitars 5 Steps to Guitar Setup Heaven doesn't fit that mode. So I was kind of finding a bit of a cognitive dissonance thing, because most of what he talks about is working for, that is it, for Re Love Guitars, except that doesn't quite work out in the same way. So I think I have to admit or accept that there are just aspects of it that don't map straight across, which is funny, because I don't know if you ever found something that you really subscribe to, and then there's a sort of human tendency to want every aspect of it to really work out and map completely, and of course this doesn't. Anyway, so yeah, according to him, the author, you wouldn't be selling information. There is no market for it. But maybe a way of, maybe I should be thinking about it differently, that what I'm selling is how-to guide is a form of execution. It's with this you can get that done. Maybe it is exempt from his rule. I don't know, but it was a very good book, and I realise I've yet to summarise what it's about. It basically says a few things, but one of them is, you need to, your target has always got, in business, has always got to be to reach a point of oversubscribed, so where you have people, I guess, waiting for your services or your product, and if you are in that position, a fortunate position, or you've worked hard to get to that position, you have greater command over the prices you charge for your products and services, and therefore you can pick and choose a bit, and so on and so on. So there's some obvious kind of things, but it's a very good book by and large, and it is quite good at the advice that says, have a, I think, what did he say? Have a product for one product for customers and one product for clients. Is that how he says it? I can't remember now, but it's this idea of a small entry product price, a low price thing that anyone could buy, and then a higher premium priced service that an engaged customer who totally gets your service and the value it adds. So maybe that's what I do. I give away information, and then I sell a premium product, which is, maybe in my case, it's the ebook at the price that I sell it at. Who knows? Anyway, it seems to work, and I'm not going to mess with it. Although I do often think, what next? And I don't really have a big plan. I think I mentioned I did set up I was interested in setting up a Patreon thing the other day, partly because somebody out of the blue suggested it, and I have a sort of a bit of a funny relationship with that sort of thing, because it's always been my take that the payback I get from giving away information, i.e. posting these videos, there's two aspects to that. First of all, if you need a payback, I get one in the clients who come to me and have watched me and asked me to do something because they like my approach. That's a pretty good payback for giving away, quote unquote, giving away information. So I don't really think it's giving it away. It's kind of enlightened self-interest from a marketing perspective. But anyway, if there's a immediate benefit, that's one. And the other aspect of it is that the producing of videos like this is only, it comes with what I do anyway, so it's not like I'm not having to bend over any further backwards to create this thing that I so-called give away. So when people have said, hey man, you're giving all this great information, I understand from their perspective it looks like free information, and they, some folks have said they get an awful lot from it, and I'm very happy with that. But I kind of, in some ways, I don't feel like I need further rewarding for that, if you see what I'm saying. However, I did rethink it, and so I left it. I set up a Patreon and I left it, and a very kind person, since I didn't promote it at all, this is the first time I've mentioned it, nobody knows it's there, but interestingly the other day one person did actually find their way to Patreon and search me out, thinking, must have been thinking, has he got a Patreon account? He should, or something like that. They searched me out and found my little account and donated $1 a month, which was very sweet. But it got me thinking again, and I sort of, I did that thing, I read the manual a bit, or looked at a couple of videos. What it sounded like is that Patreon is great for giving people an opportunity to support someone if they want. But the bit that caught my ear was when it sort of talked about how it's quite useful for enlisting your supporters, in inverted commas, to help you reach a certain goal. Because one of the things I was thinking about is that my process here in the shed, making guitars particularly, is really slow, because I am short of some basic tools and space. And again, this is by no means a complaint. I'm really pleased with how it's gone and where I've got to. But at the same time, I do know that routing a guitar body instead of just being able to go with a bandsaw takes a hell of a lot longer and makes a load of mess and noise and so on. So whilst I'm pleased with where I've got, if I'm looking to what could I improve on, well, I'd like to be able to waste less time making nice guitars, because I've made some in the last year or so that I really like, and other people have really liked as well. So it's not a huge empire building thing, and making guitars when you're up against, or when you're effectively in some ways competing with lots of other boutique makers and or the mass production thing, isn't something you really want to sort of try and make your future out of, I wouldn't say, but it is highly rewarding, and the truth is I intend to carry on doing it because it's so rewarding, but I'd like to do it with quite a lot less waste of time, just my own. I can do more. Anyway, so cutting back to the point was it started to think about Patreon as a yes, a way that I can offer people a chance. If they feel grateful for something I've shared with them, then that's fine. I'm not going to turn down an expression of gratitude. That would be dishonourable in a way. But I thought the way I could probably see to use it that would be productive would be to do this thing of setting a goal and inviting support to reach that. And I thought the next step for me would be to find a local workshop of some sort where I could either get frequent access to stuff, even if it's not locating there to do and be Relove Guitars. I could then maybe go there a couple of days a week and take all my bodies to dispose, my bodies to cut out or whatever, that kind of thing. So I'm going to have to think about that and see if it's a feasible thing to do, and then I might get a bit of downtime, and go on to Patreon again and say, look, you guys have been fantastic already just by following and supporting and commenting, and here's a little project, and it feels like in a way you want to, can help me reach that or achieve that project, then here are some ways I can repay you and show my gratitude, that kind of thing. Because I think it should, it should always have a means of paying back. Just like one day I probably won't be able to lift that. Anyway, so that was a little thought that came up a few days ago. Thanks to the person who hunted me down on Patreon and insisted on giving me $1 a month. Anyway, that's a bin, that's glue, and that's a bin. So yeah, I might do that. And I'm absolutely fine if it doesn't turn out, work out, whatever. If it is, it's great. If it's not, that's how it's meant to be. So, having just done this, there's Hugh's, whatchamacallit, Moderne neck with the end pieces protected, so they're kind of like, they look all finished as it is. A little bit of glue spillage on some places, but not much. Now we get to the fun part, which is, this one's a little bit difficult to do because of its tilted back headstock. But the game now is to get this thing, and this is, oh, this is such a scary part of it. Now, I used to use the square edge to cut first, and what I found was that inevitably ends up cutting the lacquer down the edge, which sort of, you usually, if you stop it in time, you can usually clean it back up with a micro mesh or something to a nice shine. But I found a better way of doing it, which is to go for the bevel first and be basically reducing this overhang by cutting away at the using the bevel to cut it away. So it's taking some away, but it's doing it on a bit of a bevel. And to begin with, I can tilt it back so it's nearly at 90 degrees. Now, I'm starting off with a very light hand on this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I have learned the hard way that when it comes to this, if you force this in any way, you end up paying for it, because the tricky part about this little operation is, first of all these frets, when they're all sticking out at different heights, it's as easy to end up banging one and sort of knocking it out of its slot and doing it more damage than good. So it's quite easy to end up doing that by accident. That's the first drawback. The second thing is, and the worst of it, is because you're working on, you're putting this into the corner here, and you are basically pushing into pushing it at an angle. So you're pushing across and down at the same time, so it's a diagonal force. And because this is flat and it's not rounded to follow the radius, it sort of tends to want to leap up like that, and if it does, this scrapes along the top of the frets. And I have, on so many refrets, I have ended up skipping, as I call it, over the top of the new frets with this vicious block of metal, this sticky out square file, with the result that the frets you've just put on have to have fret level, whether you, even if you've perfectly laid them as a set of frets, scraping the hell out of the top puts gouges on them that forces you to fret level them out again or at the end, so you have no choice. And I hate doing that. It's happened so many times, and it seems to be almost impossible to, by hand, balance these two forces, and so I try to involve my fingers so they're touching down on the neck maple, you can't see it really, but underneath the file I've got fingers kind of gripping, almost gripping the maple, because I want this to stay in touch and not to run any risk of skipping. And I'm also trying to do it slower with less force. You have to do some force or else it won't cut, but the more force you do, the more you're closer more likely you are to end up scraping the new fret. Okay, Sid, what's going on? Who are you fighting? Who are you fighting, Sid? Where's he gone? Ah, the black cat. Go on. Good boy, Sid. You have defended your territory. What a beautiful evening. Ah, there is Mr. Morris. Hello, Mr. Morris. Say hello to your fans around the world. How are you doing? Have you caught anything? No? You little bunny-tailed little critter, you. And there's can you see the baby cows in the hedge? Calves, I know they're called calves, all right. Well, that one's doing some emptying of the grass chambers for you. There is the sister of a Morris. yeah, lovely evening. There is my, oh look, we have genuine oak sawdust from yesterday, day before yesterday's routing, from which we got, not this one, there's my Eki SG. We got this one amongst others. We got two. We got this one and that one. But look at this! Wow, what a chunk of. I think it's a mixture of oak. It's a single piece on top, which is the thickest part, and then there's a sort of tongue and groovy thing on the back with nice grain and whatever. But I'm going to obviously thin that down, but it's going to make a really nice, solid block of guitar. And I personally, I'm going to err on the side of chunky, because I like chunky guitars. I like them to, you know, sit the weight down there so the neck feels like it's light by comparison. Anyway, a little wander around. So back to the careful marshalling of two forces. The reality is you'll do all right as long as you make sure the down component is more than the sideways component. That's as simple as it comes down to in the end. And that's quite hard to do when you've got a headstock that is canted back, so you can't clamp it. Strat's a bit easier because you can lock it down, you know, with a clamp. This one you have to sort of hold it, so you've got a moving thing. And you're trying to cut with sideways motion whilst pushing down far enough to prevent that lifting up and skipping business. So, as I said, I've kind of discovered that you can, if you don't like using this 90-degree version, you can switch back to the angle version, which if you're tilted that way is giving you the bevel, but if you then want to drop it back that way, you've got near to the 90 degrees anyway, but you have a bit more control over it, so it's never quite pushing in against the lacquer and therefore taking off the lacquer on the edge of the fingerboard, which is something I'm trying to avoid doing. The end ones are also require a little bit of extra work because they're quite hard to wear down. In both ends, actually, they're just a little bit more difficult, so you've got to put a bit more energy into them. And then once we've pretty much clear that we're straight, nearly straight edge, then I'll go tip over back into the focusing or concentrating on the angle. But here again, I'm still trying to really concentrate on that downward force. Yes, I want a bit of sideways cut, but more than anything, I want it to stay. I want it to point downwards, or the force to be mostly downwards. It takes a while. When you get there, you'll eventually hear it. It'll suddenly stop cutting and move in a different way. Almost there. Of course, this bits everywhere. Of course, this is harder too at this end because you've got so many more frets grouped together. It's a bigger mass of metal to cut, so you have to kind of be patient and make sure your body's in the right place to get the right downwards and slightly sideways angle. I feel it's almost reaching the edge, and you can start to see it's just starting to scuff a little bit of the tiny bit of the edge of the fingerboard, at which point we're pretty much there for the edge. And I might just run down here a little bit more, again concentrating on downward action to begin with, and then once we're there or thereabouts, you can see all the swarf building up. Once we're there or thereabouts, then comes the tricky bit too of switching around to the, or lifting it up to the angle. And here is where you really got to keep your wits about you, more downwards than sideways. Keep saying the mantra, more downwards than sideways. This is now putting a sort of 30-ish degree bevel onto the fret ends, and again will also have some control over that depending on how far you push this flat, and you can even lift it a bit and you get an even steeper angle. You don't really want to push it that far, because the higher you lift this, the more likely that's going to lift off. As soon as that lifts above the edge of the fingerboard, it's going flying. So you sort of depend on this downward bit to keep this securely operating. And you know, if you find yourself pushing too hard, kind of rein yourself in a bit and go for repetitions, if anything, than more than force. Just about right for this one, and you can see that hasn't done any damage now to the edge of the fingerboard, and yet it's those frets are spot on. Because we haven't scraped the fingerboard, you might think, well, there might surely by default there must be some sticking out material. Well, there isn't, because this, I don't even know how that does it really. If you think about it, they were all longer. And now they are actually short of the fingerboard without having scraped the fingerboard. How did that happen? Doesn't make a lot of sense, really. It doesn't. It's physically impossible, so it didn't happen. Right. One side done. Now, again, you can see I'm having to control this thing. So I'm going to concentrate on as much down as possible. And then if you change over, make sure you hold the other end nice and firm. These are always the difficult ones, these final ones. Not least because if you go too far with this, you'll hit the curvy bit of the headstock, which will make a mess. I've done that in the past and learned the hard way. I'm using a bit of push on the tail end of this to try and bring down this last couple of ones, so keep them in line with everything else. They have this tendency to get left behind. See, sometimes it will catch like that, and if you're going too hard it will kind of jump off and it will go bad. Almost there. Yes, yes. And then when we get to the end, we can work all the frets with some files, just to make sure there are no burrs, obviously extruding, sticking out bits. Well, what you can see, there won't be. This is pretty efficient this way. You may find one or two at the end here that need doing because you couldn't quite get to them with the same force that you get to everything else, but without risking hitting there. But pretty much this is a very effective way, providing you can maintain that control over this pretty savage tool actually when you get down to it. So all the way along here now I'm absolutely on the mark, so that's ready to be hand finished. The hand finishing actually, if you see kind of factory made frets, they tend to retain this sharp finish, which is why often they can feel sharper to the touch and they can put off some players, but they retain that precision finished look that looks so great in the marketing photos. So whereas my frets typically will look a little more softened off and rounded off by hand to get the best sort of feel, but they certainly don't look as machine precise as the the factory issued ones do. It's a compromise. Quite often then I'll get guitars that have come from a factory and people say, can you take the sharp edges off please? So there's still a lot of material coming off there because, like I say, they're all bunched up together and I can still feel the burred edges. So I'm just going to rock back a bit on that angle and just use it to cut in a little bit, get rid of any of this overhang. Again, try and concentrate on the downward force. There you go. And then we're now, is this one poked all the way through? Ooh. That one's popped through by the looks of it. Ah, that's weird. The tang appears to be... Does that mean there's two here that I didn't undercut the tang? Oh, hellfire. I've got a horrible feeling that happened. How did I miss those? Oh, shit. Pardon me. That's not good. I mean, it's not going to affect how they play. It's just spoiled my attempt at perfection. Wow. No, it hasn't. It's not going to affect it playing. It's not perfect anymore. Oh, and you can see it from up here. Oh well. Really sore on the arm doing this. Right. Well, what we've ended up with is two little bits of tang. Remember I said to you when the tang sticks out, if you do it very close you'll get a little bit of a curl on the tang, and there it is because these two are showing. They've crushed the end bit because for some dopey reason I didn't undercut them. I must have missed them. Anyway, we'll get it smoothed off and it's not going to affect playing or anything. It's just you and I will know, okay? But don't tell Hugh. That'll be our little secret. A little secret shame. Two of them, one after another. I must have been slightly asleep or something. Too busy talking, that's what it was. I blame my audiences. perfect angles, please. Right, well, apart from the mistakes that you and I both know are there, and nobody else will know, that's pretty good. Love it. And I'm knackered after that, as we say in England, meaning somewhat tired. Whew. Lovely rack of frets, man. Jumboys. Jumboys. Yeah. Well, that was worth the effort. I think it's time I took a break, and we'll leave this to set and dry and whatever, and I might come out and do a small amount of fiddly fretwork. But you know, it's really tempting to leave these as they are, because they're you can sort of ease off any sharp edges with sandpaper without losing so much. If you do it with a file, you will lose a bit, or one does lose a bit of this kind of lovely thing. And actually right now, a tiny bit of sandpaper, a few bits of sandpaper over the top of that would really soften that off. He said, going back for a little bit more. But once I've done this, it's almost be ready. Close to the edge, down by the skunk stripe. That's it, that's your lot, that really is your lot. Done. Lovely. So, you know, that's how long it takes me now to refret a used guitar. And if you have done it loads of times before, you probably get it to that kind of pace as well. When you do it to begin with, it takes a lot longer. And like I say, this now, because of the care I took in making sure the slots were cleaned out and everything was prepared as best it could be, these, I wouldn't be surprised if I could play these straight off, just restring and go. But it's going to be interesting to see if that's the case. But either which way, each time I do a refret, I'm prepared, quite happy and prepared to do a fret level afterwards, because that's the point where you can get it to be precise. So for Epiphone Moderne, a time to take a little rest, and we're waiting for pickups, waiting for a couple of little cap bolts, M4 cap bolts coming along. So I think a 2 or 3 days before that arrives and the pickups. In the meantime, we'll be switching over to the Made in Korea Strat and a box of nice tricks under the table. Oh yeah, a bit of off the record work, I mean off screen work, will be this. The nice thing about this is we can either sort of do a bit of work with Dremel, which I find is very messy, obviously, but it chucks stuff everywhere. So an alternative is to use a mixture of filing and file and sandpaper. So the file can take off a fair amount without doing too much damage. And once you're close to it, you can get it on the a bed of sandpaper to get a clean edge, a nice clean square edge. But yes, do by hand, and then unlike the Dremel, which throws the the plastic sawdust everywhere, this is kind of just lets it drop. Now this is a fairly gentle file, so I don't want to use the extreme wood end of things because that would tug or grab at the plastic too much and we'd probably end up with a split somewhere. So in this case I'm just using the fine side of it, and very quickly, you know, we can get down to a working thing, and then we can put it in long ways, which is a bit easier, I think. Still hold it because it's liable to flap about. Yeah, this is kind of quite nice and doesn't require too much thought. And we can actually put the corners on the by rubbing it against the sandpaper. So this is just about getting sort of the bulk of the excess plastic off. And so we'll do that for all of those. I'll do it off camera now. Do that for a bit more now, and then match them up with the body off camera, and we'll see you in a few days for the next bit. A quick look in here. Look, handmade pick guards. I mean, that one's interesting because I give it a white edge because it was a 3-ply, but this was a single, no, it was white 3-ply as well. I got that one back to front and this one the right way around, so that one's shiny and that one's dark, but I quite like the contrast. And I cut my finger as well on that blade there, which is now covered in blood. Hold on. There we are. Okay, I think we'll go and put not bandage, that's not the word, a thing, that plastery thing onto there, and go into the dark and close down the workshop for the night. Right. Okay. Let's make the lights go away and lock up. Good night. Reload the cars. Good night. There's a trail of blood everywhere. What was that? Did I hear something in there? I'm sure I did. I'm sure you did too. Hey, Mr. Morris. Come on. Well, you guys are on the hunt, aren't you? Yeah? Oh, look, I'm bleeding. Don't get a taste of my blood, will you? Oh, look, more twinkly lights. Oh no, I've left my bowl in the workshop. Oh, there's a slug on the door here. Go away, you horrible, foul creature. Cut my finger.
Are you alright?
Okay, we're home safe. Just got the replacement pickups ready for Hugh's guitar, and we've got a rolling mill and a Tesla Shark. Now, pretty certain the Tesla Shark is the bridge one. I can't remember what. Did it have it written on there? Oh, it's neck. Okay, Tesla Shark is the neck. Oh, right. Rolling mill is the bridge. Right, the other way around. Fine. Shark is neck. Thingy is bridge. And so we've got what actually was Epiphone SS series, F and R, front and rear, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. So they are Epiphones, and just they weren't too much to Hugh's liking. Looking in here, we've got 500k pots and just a standard, it will be a 2, I'm not sure what it will be, but a capacitor. Can't really see. Definitely can't see in this light. Anyway, so we're gonna push the replacement pickups in. So what do we say? The Shark The shark is the neck, isn't it? Let's just double check that. Shark neck, yeah, shark neck. So then that one's got a grey wiring to it, and this one will also have. Oh no, it's got black. So grey as neck. I'm just going to make the simplest of observations on the board here, which are red and grey is neck, because it's easy enough to forget. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take this and we're going to want to put it into the pickup casing shark neck, thinnest. I have to say this to myself sometimes because it's amazing the number of times I've gone through this and got it the wrong way around and then have to do it all over again. It's the simplest things to get wrong. Oops, pick up on its flat on its face. What I did find was a set of replacement set of little bolts for that, and they fit perfectly well. So that should cure the tuning instability problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take out the original, or move the original things, screws, pickup screws, and use the ones that came with it. It's always a good idea because they're made for the correct size. So in the neck position, I'm going to have it going that way, and then spring in place, line up. Very, yeah, exactly, a very fiddly little operation. There must be some clever way to do this that doesn't involve everything sliding off and disappearing across this workshop. Nope, that's not in place, nor is that. Nope, doesn't want to go, doesn't want to line up on the hole at all. You know, you've got to try and push it into the hole to begin with, like that, and you just about get it. It's just one of those quirky and fiddly parts of doing guitar stuff. Anyway, a bit later on, I'm gonna do this one today because this needs these pickups replacing. I'm gonna look at the capacitor here and see if I've got a replacement for it, or at it. Just see if there's any improvement to the tone. So there is our first net off our neck pickup, which has to then come through here into there, and then it goes down through here, and what I'll do is let's just first of all tack it into place so it's where we want it and it isn't jumping around all over the shop. And a bit later on I'm going to have another check of JT's made in Korea, a customised strap which needs I got a reply back from Seymour Duncan about what I should be hearing when tapping, or sorry, not tapping, splitting the parallel axis single coil that we fitted, and it's a fantastic sounding pickup in the neck position, but at the moment it's not making any particular. There's a slight tonal change when I push the coil split, and it's not a humbucker in this sense that this is. It's a stacked single coil, and the answer from David at Seymour Duncan was, or the explanation was, that cutting the coil should go. Coil tapping it will cut off half of the stack, or part of the stack, and it should end up sounding, his explanation, or his description was, it sounds like a cleaner, it sounds cleaner when it's split, like a single coil versus a humbucker. He didn't say anything about volume change or tone particularly, he just said it sounded cleaner, brighter and cleaner, like a true single coil. Now, it sounds pretty good as it is. So, and there is a very slight change, but not enough, so something is not quite right. His wiring diagram, interestingly, is one where, or the one he sent me, I've got it in the house, but it's an interesting one because it's the sort of other way round than I wire it. So he's drawn it, he's drawn the wires going, what's he drawn? The pickup in his drawing goes to the, no, does it go? No, the pickup goes to the pot and then goes to the switch, whereas in JT's guitar, being like a single coil, now this is where I have an interesting, can we get two wires through here? In JT's guitar, the pickup goes to the switch first and then to the pot, because it's a master tone, master volume arrangement. So I'm not quite, my head's a bit unsure. Now this is interesting because these two pickups, this guitar was not built for these four conductor pickups, so I may have to drill this if I can't get this through comfortably. Oh, I won't say comfortably is the word, but it's just gone through. We should be alright. Come on. Snug, shall we say. Yeah, so we'll have a look at that later on. So it is, whatever's happening, see, we have quite a lot of clutter down here. A tight fit. Yeah, whatever's happening, that parallel access pickup still sounds like a lovely tone. It's very nice. But I'm determined to get some noticeable difference when you split apart the coil, or the lower coil. And I can't see right now how I've got it wrong, but I have to translate my wiring, his wiring diagram, into my arrangement. So let me think. His goes to the. His diagram. How did his oh, I can't think about it without seeing it, but it's slightly different. That's all, because I think his is working on the basis of a. It's going to 4. I think that's right. I think his goes to the. That's right. The pickup goes to the pot in his case, and the output goes to the switch. And I think it's because there's 2 independent volumes, whereas on JT's it's a master volume, so it's different from that. Anyway, there are what to call them, those things, you know, iron gears. And again, we'll squeeze this through this narrow tunnel and then into wiring. Now, I may not bore you perhaps with this wiring. Let's see if I can even get this through. Actually, it is a big chunk of stuff trying to go through a small hole. It's going to be tricky if I'm going to try and dig this any bigger, because I don't have much access to it. Come on, come on, you can do it. Well, there's a couple of bits poking out down there, but I don't end up dragging, pulling too much. See if I can help it along by pulling this as well. No. Come on, a little bit of assistance. There's another one. They really didn't build it with 4 conductor wire in mind, that's for sure. Come on, come on. I have a feeling this isn't going to work. I've only got 3 wires going through at the moment. I don't think there is actually enough room. I'll put a little wrap around the end of this to see if I can get it all going in one go, but it's tough. I don't want to do it. Just holy crap. Come on. I might end up busting the wire to get it through, but it's very, very close thing. It's just nearly not doable. In fact, when it comes down to the actual thickness of it, it really doesn't want to go. Well, just barely. Not so good. Right. Neck, bridge. Right, I'm going to go away and do this off camera and come back when the setup time. Magically, here we are with the pickups wired up, the guitar neck back on, and the tremolo in place. There's the stripped bolt from before that can disappear, and then we have 2 very simple that's a freaky word from the beyond the grave. That's some 120 grit sandpaper speaking to me in a strange way. How weird was that? That madeth me jumpeth. Do I do it again? Yeah, anyway, so let's just get these off here for a minute. Yeah, so just going to put this locking nut business back on. I checked everything in this guitar and it seems good. I mean, hang on a minute, what's going on here? That's not the right way. That ain't the right way. Woohoo. How's that? Oh, it must be going at an odd angle then. That doesn't look right at all. But it is right. I can assure you, me. It's a funny thing, if ever I saw one. Okay, so 3, 3, 3. Those are 3 left of those. This is for your black thing. So that's not the best fitting screws I have ever seen to add to to fit a nut in place, but it's doing the job, and it's going to be under pressure downwards, so it's really only to hold it in place. So I'm not going to get too upset about it. I'm going to chuck these out of the way because I don't want these 3 original bolts. I'm going to try and keep them out of the deal if I can. Then we had I put them somewhere, didn't I? The snipped off strings. Very cleverly I put them somewhere because they didn't have ends to them. Now where would I have put them? I would have marked them up. That was locking tuner ones. That's got ends on them. Aha, here's the ones with no ends. Beautifully. Nothing written on them, but there you have them. They're fixed into place. So these are my. I could have used another set and just cut off the things, but let's see if we can just do these as they are. So it's not this one, is it? Is it? Yes, it is. Okay, push that in there like that, push that back on there like that, do it up all the way up to here. So basically I'm going to set this, I'll put this up ready to set up later on, or maybe in a bit. Got a few other things to do while the weather's still reddish. So that should be, look at that, nice high frets. Now what I didn't know is I thought that would cut down the gap, and it has done, so that's looking quite good. The first fret action was a little higher than I would have wanted it, but I knew that putting new jumbo frets on would change the gap that was available. And with a piece, a locking nut like this, you're suddenly in a difficult position, because let's say the action was wrong, but we hadn't changed the come on, oh lords, we hadn't changed the frets, refretted it, then we'd be in a position to sort of try and figure out how to lower it, and it might be in a case of, oh, this is just garbage the way this gets tangled up. We might have to be filing down the actual locking nut piece, but they're really cheap if you're interested. Out there on eBay, if you're looking for a replacement, or you're messing around and you've kind of, it's changed it and you're not happy with it, you can get them for a couple of pounds, or you can spend £100 on them and get a titanium one from some fancy supplier, but there won't be much different. The only thing that's a little bit lacking on this, for its budgetness, is everything just creaking and clanking in this shed today. Let me just do this up a bit, or cut this off I should say. Stand some chance of feeding it through the tuner. The thing that's lacking on this for its cheapness is the screws that hold it down. They're not ideal really, but then it's quite a fine neck on it, so you wouldn't want too big of screws because they go through and come out the other side. Like I say, it's mainly to locate it side to side. That's its primary job, so I wouldn't be too worried about it. It's doing that. It's just that the screws went in at a funny angle really. I hate pre-used strings. They're very useful for things like fret leveling and setups, but the coils on the end of them, they're either set to catch on everything that you possess, or their purpose is to stick a hole in your finger and draw blood. One way or other it will cause trouble. Okay, so obviously this is, at the moment, it's not going to be taking a load of the tremolo, hence I've still got the tremolo supported by the block. Now I need to just switch sides with the block so I can access the other bits. And these are incredibly simple systems. I mean, it holds these strings by brute force of friction, nothing more or less sophisticated than that. I did had a really great Yamaha SE 350 once that had a system at this end where you could basically, the ball end went in here, so it held by the ball, so you didn't have to have any of this kind of crazy friction gripping locking system to hold it. The ball end did its job, which is what it's there for, and it didn't really take that much clever design to make it do that. Yamaha just seemed to have thought it through and built the bridge with that in mind. You know, why bother having to force the customer to snip the ball off or turn the strings upside down, which some people are keen to do. But why make them do that? And why make all this locking arrangement with these bolt, you know, screw things that have to be tightened up, and you know, eventually something's going to strip and it's not going to grip anymore, and then you've got a whole new unit you're looking for. So why do all of that when you could just thread a ball through there? It seems pretty sensible to me, and they did it on the Yamaha. I really like that. It's far more confidence inspiring to know that strings are held that way. Okay, so as soon as I let this go, obviously it's going to tighten up pretty good. And it's going to be miles off any playing action that I want, but well, what we don't know is that first fret action's quite good, but there's practically either no relief in the neck at all. No, there isn't. Not either, it just isn't. Right, but it's not under tension, full tension yet. So this is an interesting one, is how do you go about getting the action you want out of one of these things? And the simple fact is, there are with this kind of system, it's pretty straightforward. You because it's not like a Strat tremolo where you kind of balance how much it's going to go back. It goes back how much it wants to into the pit. So your principal, actually it's not too bad, your principal action is going to be set here, which it currently is actually. It doesn't help this is hitting this pickup for a start. So let's get that tucked out of the way. Won't go anywhere, please. Will it not go? Oh, come on. There's. Don't tell me there's wires getting in the way, stopping. I thought. Oh, there you go. That's not what I wanted, but okay. Okay. So the first thing you've got to do with one of these is tune it, and you need a proper tuner to tune it to a reference pitch, or not to do it dynamically. So I either need a reference set of strings, or I'm going to go and get a tuner from indoors. I'm going to tune it, and I'm going to look at the action, which is actually pretty close to where I'd want it, and I may only need, once it's under full tension, it may only need the smallest adjustment, but we won't know. In fact, it is actually currently set on my ideal playing action. But we'll need to put it under more load and check that relief, because it's flat as a pancake at the moment. Alright, so back in a minute. Right. Gonna try this out. Got this action where I want it. Just did the strings up, put the neck under load, saw where it sort of got to, tweaked it a little bit, and here we go to stick these little locking caps on and see how well they hold the tune. Should be okay. They're a little bit longer than the original ones, that's the only thing. I don't want to have to start filing them down or anything, because that will just mash up the ends. So I'm hoping, because they don't poke all the way through, I'm hoping that this will still do a good lock. You can see them pushing really well on the strings, so they should do. Probably. Oop, leave that alone, fool. That sounds alright, actually. nothing wrong with that. There you go. The only thing to do now is find out whether we need fret leveling or not, or whether this has been such a good fretting in the first place that every note is playable. I doubt it. I bet we're going to need some leveling. This is perfect action now with the slightly taller frets. Pretty good actually. That is remarkably good. Let's just double check the action. We are just on the 1.5, slightly under in fact, and that is coming in at about 1.2. This is pulling some stretch out of it. I haven't done a complete stretch on these original strings, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go out of tune, but it's not coming through from the other side of the locking nut, which is really good. Oops, that's come through, pulled through there actually. So that needs to be slacked off. Anyway, I'm sort of kind of happy with that, the way it is. That is a straight win on the fretting front, I think. Right, let's just dial these back to halfway. Where are we? All the way out. Let's right the way out. Get them all out. Where's that one sticky? That's all the way out as far as it will go, but it's not as far out as that one. So that's all. Let's use them all at the same place if I can. Do this back up again. And fine tune it. Oh damn, this one's annoying me. This thing is a bit dodgy, this one. Yeah, it doesn't go out. They don't all come out the equal amount, which is not brilliant, but all these micro tuners, but oh, keeps going the wrong end. Right, now that is got virtually no relief in it, so I want to put a little bit in. Always the way. Just old strings, their purpose is to hurt you. Okay, that's not the right size. Let's see. So we want to, foreign style, eh? Find something that will work. So we want this to curve a bit, so we want to take a bit of the, oh Jesus, these cut strings are sticking in me. I want to take a bit of the no, yes, no, yes, no, no. Take a bit of the truss rod under it a little bit. Failing to find the right thing. This is, says made in Mexico. It shouldn't by rights work on here, but lo and behold, does it? I don't know. Getting anything to line up with this is a bit difficult. It should be one of those metric. What's it? That's very odd. Sometimes the angle ones don't go in properly, and then that fits in, but it goes in, but it's not the right size. No. Too small. Too small. That's odd. The only other one that I can see is the next size up. Oh, maybe it's that one. There's no way, that's not even going to vaguely fit in. Now without the strings in the way, that's the annoying bit, I can't really get to it, so it's at the expense of the nice lovely tuning. Let's get these out of the way. Sorry about this. Now it doesn't matter that it's going to change the loading on the neck. I just want the strings out of the way so I can get to the truss rod and have some chance of finding out which is the right key, and then we can slack it off a little bit. That's too big, that's too small, that's too big, something in between that has escaped me. It should be this made in Mexico size. It's kind of almost there, but not. And there's this one, which is the next one down in metric land. What is it? Bloody hell. Right, it's turned it. After all of that, it is that one, but you just can't get the angle on it when you've got the strings on. That's the absolute bummer. So right now, got to tune it back up. It's not going to be perfect because we need to now tune it up relatively, which we'll do in a second. I just want really, I'm interested in just getting the what's that thing? The relief right. So now I'm going to undo all of them just to start again. Right, now lock these off again and see if our small truss rod adjustment has made any difference. Okay, see what that adjustment did. Okay, we've got some space now. Little. That's nice. And what's even better for me is the fact that I don't have to fret level my fret placing on this one. I knew it was a good one. If you remember back early on in this thing, setup thing, refret, I could tell it was a good one. I'm going for this strap because Big Stevie gave it to me, but also because I don't want this damn squeaking of the cheap ones. But it's a newish strap. It's a Brian May strap, which I'm now wearing back to front. But anyway, point is, it's harder to get on, and these are big strap buttons, so I'm fighting this a little bit to get it on, but it's not going to fall off. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now, oh yes, we have to check the intonation, which is a physical push-pull thing, which isn't the best thing and all, but hey, what? Okay, first sound of this thing with new pickups in it. Come on, do it. Ooh. Nicely picked up by the pickups. obviously there's a bit of retuning to do. Well, I'll put some new string in. That's all right, that. Bend as hard as I can. These are 9s, I think. I can't remember now, but we'll check. Right, that's up a little high now. Yeah, that's okay. Just check where we are with the... Sorry, noise. Going to tame that action down a little bit here, and well, actually what I'll do is I'll take it down a little bit when I've got the strings off and I'm stretching out the new strings. So that's the next bit. Well, oh, I tell you what, while I'm there, even these strings may be a bit old for it, but let's have a look. See what it says in terms of intonation. Run out, I think. I'm happy with that. It's already set and that's in good shape. So right, what am I going to do? Yes, I'm going to take the strings off, put new strings on, and in doing so I'm going to wind in the action a fraction. Now, people have given me a hard time before for doing it with the bridge under load, and I am absolutely not in the slightest bit convinced that the arguments, well, I know it's not an argument, that the point I put forward that doing so damages the faces of the knife edges. I have no I'm not in the slightest bit convinced that that is the case. There's no, for the simple reason, for me, there's no convincing argument why turning this here like this, right? Because this is pressing against it. Why turning that with this load pushing that way should be more or less damaging than it sitting there and going like that 24 hours a day. Okay, it doesn't. I don't buy it. You know, there's those who would say, well, look, if you're putting a knife into it, you're cutting a hole into there. Well, that's hard metal, right? And it's not cutting a hole into there while it's doing that all the time, and that's pressing constantly. There's no more or less force against this post. And the argument is that this is going to somehow scissor its way into the post because of the turning motion. And I want to know, tell me how that increases the force loading on that the edge, shall we say. I'll tell you what I better do. Let's put the block under here just to keep it easier. Yeah, so I don't buy it, but I'm going to give it a little go to do it in the way that will keep everyone from freaking out. So I'll lower the action while the strings are off, but it isn't going to be ideal, and I'm going to have to do it with the strings on, because there is no reasonable way of seeing where you get to. And if you're interested in a precise low action, you're not going to get it by hit and missing every 2 seconds and then doing the neck up or doing the strings up again, locking them down, then seeing where you are, then unscrewing everything, taking all the stress off the block. Oh, and by the way, you know, by the way, this is the funny bit. By the way, there are two sets of forces pulling on this, putting loading on this, right? There's the strings pulling it that way, but guess what's also pulling it that way? Yes, the springs, right? So the people who insist that turning this while that's under load is going to damage it, basically are saying you have to take the strings off, and you have to take the springs off and take the whole tremolo out, then do a couple of turns, then put the whole thing back together again, then load it, and then see what you've got. I think that's just bunkum, frankly. But there you go. It's just one of those things that I know people will get really het up because, you know, and there are people out there who are convinced that they've ruined the face, you know, the edges of their tremolo, you know, the blade, you know, there's people who are convinced they've done it to something they've owned in the past, and with the result that it never stayed in tune after that. I have no doubt that they did something, they turned it with the thing under load like I do, and I have no doubt that maybe afterwards they weren't able to get their guitar into tune, but I suspect it has more to do with other aspects, like they didn't stretch the strings out and get the slack out of them, or a whole bunch of other things that are far more likely to be the culprits than adjusting the thing while it was under load. Because, you know, having I think long back I set up a Rally Super Strat with a very old, or relatively old, and surely worn out cheap Chinese Floyd style bridge, of which I've got a couple here in boxes, but you know, and by all arguments, or according to the views of those who believe that such things can't possibly survive having the posts turned under load, that thing should have been totally and utterly worn out after so many years, because A, because it was cheap Chinese crap, and B, because it was old. And guess what? It had some corrosion on it, but guess what? It stayed perfectly in tune and behaved exactly as it should. So, and I deliberately did the adjustments with it under load, and it didn't cause any issues at all. So, as I've always said, I do things on the basis of what experience shows me, not what some people believe. Right now, Hugh, I'm going to take these off because these things are, it's like leaving stuff on the car seats. You know I've put these in, you sent them to me, it's not like I've pretended to put new pickups in. Yeah. So yeah, let me just chuck these all away, and I've forgotten what gauge they were. There they are. I'll tell you now. Yeah, but you know, I hate that sort of dogmatic thing. You know, people when they're absolutely sure of something. That's a set of 9s. When they're absolutely sure of something, but there isn't really. They really don't have any solid evidence to prove it. It's just that I'm pretty sure this is what happened to me. Therefore, I'm going to go along with that. And you know, yet I can demonstrate the opposite to that time and time again. But you know, people still don't change their minds. They hold on for a long time to what they believe in. Okay, so some people like to put these ball ends of the strings flopping out of there. I personally don't much. What you can do, I suppose, is no, it's just too fiddly. Just cut them all off to begin with. It's just it's a pain to try and do it the other way. So shove it in there, all the way down, lock it off, bend it, shove it in there, lock it off, tight, bend it, and so on. So this is, I'm very pleased with this. As you can see, it's one of the, about 1 in 30, maybe 1 in 20 refrets that is good enough from the outset to just play without needing any further fret leveling. And the good thing about that, of course, is that it means we're starting off with absolutely no further life taken off the strings there. Frets. They are brand stack. Oh shit. Okay, what's going on there? That wasn't even in. Hey, what happened there? That's weird. Maybe that's why it wasn't tuning properly. Who knows? Yeah. So yeah, very rare to get it, but the nice thing is you get the frets as they were intended from the very start, the fullest length of life possible from any given fret. So let's back here a minute. There we go, lock it off, nice and tight, and bend. Okay, and then down to here. Now because it's a locking nut, we don't want tons of wire. But on the other hand, it doesn't really matter because we're locking it off. So I'll carry on doing it the same way as ever, so it looks tidy. And we'll treat it as if it didn't have the locking device in place. Oh yes, what I was going to do before I put that on load, yes, I was going to lower this, wasn't I? Let's do half, and quarter, and quarter. Let's see what that does. Now that's still under load of the springs, so you know, purists out there, you hate me because that's obviously scissoring away at the edge of the tremolo blade, at which point it won't work after this, as you know. In fact, what it should do is it should scissor the post in half, and you should see it snap off and the whole unit. Sorry, I'm being sarcastic, but I did a very close-up look at that rally with the Chinese Floyd style, basically a Chinese Floyd rip-off, and I had a good close look at it, and whilst I totally accept that it's probably made from far softer steel, I had to judge based on the age of the guitar and the fact that it had been there on, you know, for 10 years maybe, and been used in that time and had some corrosion, and kind of probably even better that it had some corrosion on the edge, because what it proved was, even with corrosion, it worked perfectly and didn't fail to return to tune. So the whole kind of argument was just not stacking up, or evidence I should say wasn't bearing out the argument, which is what gets me. Logical type. Right, last one. When I first saw a tremolo Floyd Rose, they frightened me, like I think they do most people, because they seem to defy logic. How do you get them to work? What's the secret? And of course it's one of those parts of guitaring when you go onto 1,000 different forums to try and find somebody who can help you make a bit of sense of it. And of course what happens is almost anything but that happens, so you don't really get any help, you just get further confused by a load of people with very strident views. It took me a while to discover that it's actually really very simple. And I was very pleased to discover that, because when you do realise it's very simple, it's no longer a scary thing. Okay, so what I need to do at this point is, anyway, stretch the strings. The more you do at this stage before you lock anything down, the less fiddling backwards and forwards you're going to be doing with these locking nuts. Right? If you don't do this stretching now, you'll make all your adjustments. You'll lock it off here, tune it up, lock it off, and then before you know what's happened, you'll be winding these things down, these little micro adjusters down to the stops, and you'll be having to undo it again and go through the whole process again. So it's far better to get as much of the slack out of these strings as possible to begin with, and that will really help the process of stabilizing the equilibrium for starters, and then also being locked down and staying locked down for good, because you won't need to keep opening it up. Now I suspect in a moment I'm probably going to have to make an alteration to this bridge again, because I think it depends what happens when I get the load and get the tuning to balance it in equilibrium. Some pulls, could do some more stretchings. In case you're wondering why this custom strap has a stumpy tremolo, it's to order. The funny thing is, when you first start messing around with Floyd Rose tremolos, you realise that bending notes, sort of bluesy note bending thing, causes the other notes, any other notes that are sustaining or open, notes I should say probably, causes them to detune. As you bend upwards with the held note, the free notes or the loose notes all detune, and if they're ringing out it's quite an odd effect, so you have to change your style of playing really. So if we were to put on these right now, we are ready to give it a try out, see what the action's like and whether we need to take it down a little bit further or up even. See, pressing, locking these down also causes causes the note to go a little sharp. So even if you've got it where you think it's just right on the without the locking nuts, then you lock it down, you will get a change in pitch usually. So you have to kind of anticipate that with your micro tuners, so you've got enough leeway on there to adjust. Hard to tune with this thing flopping about. This is hitting the pickup. That's the action's lower now. That's about right. That could be, I suspect, too low. Yes, I've wound it into low. That's 0.5 of a millimetre. Well, I'm going to do the wicked thing now. Watch me do it. Lock me up. Right, that's low as well. Oh, well, I overdid it, so what? Of course the tuning will be gone again. Run out now. So I've run out of space, so what I'm going to do is reset these back and then unlock the tuning thingies, locking tuners, locking nut. I'll do it again. That's the way it goes. Several goes at the same thing. tightly locked down. Beaut, there we go, done. Mr. Hugh, oh, missing the knobs and the back plate and the, oh, let's do those now while we got it, come on, come on. Right, first one, line them up in the same position. I always like to have them pointing at the same thing roughly. Back plate, thingy plate, especially both custom cut, I have to say. Spare thingies, thingy, onto two on the Torx. These are for the can be, you know, truss rod cover. That thing. On. I need a few more black screws out the screw department, and I think they're drilled holes in each of these places. So the next thing I'm going to do tonight is do a little bit of adjustment, tweaking on JT's custom strap there, and investigate this pickup thing. Make sure I will try and find how to make it split, or find out if it is splitting and I'm just not really able to hear the subtlety of the change. I think it's a feeling like I would be able to hear it if it was actually doing it. So I'm going to suspect that maybe I've got something wrong and I need to relook at it. Anyway, I have a diagram which is different from how I've done it, but it's still probably worth having a look at. Right, I need two more. Now if I just put this on upside down, I have, haven't I? How did I manage that? No, I can't. Oh yes, I have. Of course I have. I've done it back to front. That's because, actually I prefer it that way up, unless they're not in the right place. So, silly me. This is what I did the first time. I actually made holes on both sides. Of course there's holes on both sides, but I should have gone like that, if you get my drift. Right, a couple more of these black screws and we're away. Three more black pickguard screws. When everything's labelled properly, you know where everything is. Two more of those. Time to order some more in bulk, I think. There we have it. All our new covers. Still got the original dings and chips on the side, but hey, refretted, tremeloed. I'll play it a bit the next day or so. I think Hugh's coming Friday for this. I'll play it a bit, and then if it detunes at all, I'll set the reset the locking nuts for one last time. But there we have it. Beaut. I can stand it up here for a minute while I switch everything off. Stay there.